Owency, who completed 12 of 21 for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns after replacing Mark Cassell, driving Argos to a 43-23 win over the Edmonton Eskimos. And sophomore Turner Gill, inconsistent most of this young season, Turner completed 30 of 44 passes for 314 yards and rushed for 35 yards himself against the Calgary Stampeders. Montreal goes into this battle for first place in the East with a 2-point lead on Toronto and Ottawa, who moved into a tie for second with their victory over Saskatchewan last night. Welcome to Friday Night Football on CTV. Live from Montreal's Olympic Stadium, the Toronto Argonauts versus the Montreal Concordes. We have got another great night for football. Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Stevenson. We're going to look at a game tonight in which Coach Bob Abilovich, who has taken his club in the 3 seasons he's been head coach to first place, in which he is going to have to come up with a win to stay tight. Because if he drops 4 points back, it'll be an uphill battle for the Argos to do it 4 years in a row. And as for Montreal, Coach Joe Gallat has a concern because they did not look good in their last home game against Hamilton. He said, we can't disappoint our fans for the second game in a row. So it's very important for the Concordes. And now let's go upstairs to Pat Marsden and Lee Pedersen.
Thank you, Bill. Hello again, everybody. Boy, this is a football game we've all been looking forward to, particularly Joe Gallat. His club has never beaten the Toronto Argonauts in the history of the Montreal Concordes. If they're going to do it tonight, Leaf, they've got to play their usual solid defense.
Well, Pat, you know, the key is they play well as a unit. Front four, they're led by Sandy Armstrong. He had 3 sacks against Calgary last week. No linebacker in the league has performed better than Ken Shanconi. 3 interceptions, and when they need a big play, he's the guy that they look to. He's done it all year. Although the secondary has played well, don't think Harry Skipper's really played up to his performance of last year. He's played well, but I think maybe being in the option year of his contract has bothered him a little bit.
Well, you know, the reason that Montreal defensive unit is going to have to play well is because they're up against the best passing team in all of Canada. And the Argos have really helped themselves with the acquisition of a newcomer.
Well, Pat, that's right. Thad Jamison is playing that wide receiver spot. They've looked for a number of years to try and find a receiver to complement Terry Greer. They think they found him. He has excellent speed. He's a good target for a young quarterback. And Paul Pearson, he's back in the lineup. You know, last year, 2/3 of the way through the season, he led the league in receiving, and had he not been injured, probably would have won the receiving title. But he's healthy, he's back, and last week against Edmonton, this big 71-yard reception led to their victory.
It's really a game, though, that football fans of the Canadian Football League have been looking forward to because the Argos have really been coming on.
Is brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Sports, bringing the sports world home to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Geraldine Doucet and our national anthem.
Ô Canada, terre de nos aïeux, ton front est ceint de fleurs glorieux, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Well, the officials for tonight's game in this contest between the Argonauts and the Montreal Concordes. Ken Lazaruk and his crew. And Pat, as you said, it's a game that has had keen anticipation not only in Toronto and Montreal, but throughout the CFL. Coach Bob Abilovich of the Argonauts said as far as he is concerned, the team that will win this game is the one that gets superior quarterbacking. Pat, take it away. We're looking for an exciting one.
Well, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't a very good football game. They're both poised clubs. They're both experienced teams now. Neither has made a change in the last couple of weeks. Bobo Bilovich, he has done everything you could ask of a head coach. Joe Gallat and his staff have really looked forward to this one. Gallat says this will be a non-successful year if we do not get to the Grey Cup. They could take a leg up on doing so with this game tonight. Kerry Taylor with the kickoff return for the Argos gets it out to the 34-yard line. And he's brought down by Frank Kosick, number 76, who is usually first down on that special team for the Concordes. Mike Hohensee, a little more experienced than Mark Cassell. That's why he gets the start. Kerry Taylor, one of the really bright newcomers to the CFL. The receivers, well, we mentioned Paul Pearson and Thad Jemison. Let's not forget that Jan Carinci is also in the slot, and you cannot disregard one of the great receivers of all time, Terry Greer, as the Argos begin from their 34-yard line with a first down. Hohensee's pass is picked up. Harry Skippers.
Skippers maybe being not up to par this year, but what an exceptional play he makes cutting across. He said in the papers today he felt like he hadn't been playing the receivers tight enough. Well, that time tight enough as he on the first play of the ball game comes up with the interception.
And now Turner Gill and the Montreal Concordes have possession at the Toronto 45-yard line. Complete to Nikaraki, but he only gets a couple of yards as he's forced out at the 43 by Dennis Clay, number 14.
Now, both teams like to play a lot of zone defense, and that time Dennis Clay just read it perfectly. There you see the backfield for the Concordes. The addition, Alan Reed, he played last week in Calgary, taking over from Rich Tomaselli, who was injured. Chris Haynes, also a newcomer at that wide receiver spot, originally from Notre Dame, spent the last few years with the LA Express in the USFL.
Well, strangely enough, the Argonauts lead the CFL in interceptions, but Montreal picked that one off right on that occasion. The pass is complete to Mike McTagg, and he will have a first down at the Toronto 33. Again, Dennis Clay was forced to make the stop.
Well, Pat, you and I have talked many times this year as we've watched the Montreal Concordes and said that probably the biggest addition they made on offense was Mike McTagg. He's really blossomed into a fine slot back and, of course, handles those punting and kickoff duties. They've got a great Canadian offensive line in front of Turner Gill.
And they have a first down at the Toronto 33-yard line. The toss goes to Dwayne Wilson. Dwayne Wilson that gained 1,000 yards for Montreal last year, off to a slow start, but comes up big before Dennis Clay makes the stop. There is a penalty marker down on the field, however. It is against the Argonauts.
Toronto, 79, offside, decline, first down.
Walter Ballard, who just signed a new 3-year contract with the Argos, was offside.
Now let's have a look at Dwayne Wilson. A good block from 66 Lloyd Fairbanks, and just good, hard, determined running. Picks up 14 yards. The Concordes have got a good drive going.
They have. They're at the Toronto 17. Oh, he was drilled. Turner Gill was hammered by Walter Ballard coming from his blind side, and he just stuck him at the 12-yard line.
Nevertheless, he does get some good yardage on first down, but watch as Turner cuts back. Number 79, Walter Ballard, just drills him. They do, however, pick up 6 yards, and on first down, that's a great play.
So it brings up a 2nd and 4. Montreal, the ball at the Toronto 12-yard line. We're just underway here in the first quarter. This is the newcomer, Alan Reed. Reed is inside the 10 to about the 9, but he's going to be about a yard short of the first down. Don Moan, number 36, the linebacker on that side, was there to prevent the first down.
That's a good crew you see on your screen right there. James Reed coming over from Saskatchewan, anchoring the middle. Of course, Carl Brazeley, last week's Pacific Western Star of the Week.
Boy, is this crowd alive.
Well, they got a big gamble right here, Bill. They've decided they're going to go for it.
The Argos Argos bring in their goal line defense right now. It's 3rd and a yard to go, Montreal. And they should have the first down. Tony Johns, number 21, a product of Mississauga's Lorne Park Secondary School, gets the first down for Montreal.
Some good hard running straight upfield, picks up that first down. You know, they lost Rich Tomaselli, who was their short yardage guy. So now each time they need a good yard or two, they bring in Tony Johns, the rookie, and he's been able to do it for them.
It is first and touchdown to go, Montreal. The draw to Alan Reed, and Reed has nowhere to go.
Mark Seal did a heck of a job plugging up that inside. Pretty good call by Turner Gill. Toronto probably thinking pass, but Mark Seal, whom they acquired from the Ottawa Rough Riders a few weeks ago, made a nice play.
Alan Reed from the University of Minnesota, who played in the USFL, picks up about a yard, so make it 2nd down and 6 yards to go for the major score. University of Notre Dame, Chris Haynes, number 19, records his first Canadian Football League touchdown on the pass from Turner Gill. And what a job that man, number 12, performed, because he was under severe pressure. Let's watch it again.
Well, Pat, he really did buy himself some extra time. You see him cut back to the inside. He spots Chris Haynes, does a great job to keep his feet in bounds there. Only his 3rd catch of the season, but a big, important touchdown.
And Roy Kurtz, who hasn't missed a point after all year, puts it through the uprights. The Montreal Concordes capitalize on the interception by Harry Skipper. The touchdown pass to Chris Haynes. They lead the Argos 7-0. We'll be back with the Montreal kickoff in a moment. Skipper made the interception of a Mike Hohensee pass, and 8 plays later, Turner Gill fires complete to Chris Haynes, and Montreal leads at 7-0.
Well, Pat, it's the one thing they've done all year. Take advantage of that turnover.
This is Jeff Townsend. And Townsend is out over the 45 to about the 47-yard line. And strangely enough, we mentioned Tony Johns from Lorne Park Secondary School in Mississauga. Jeff Townsend went to the same school. They played on the same club. Townsend at that time was a quarterback, and Tony Johns was his running back.
Townsend later moved on to Boston College, where he started. He does an excellent job cutting back upfield, finding a seam, and, you know, after you've been scored upon, you really want good field position. He's provided that.
So the Argos at their 47-yard line with a first down. Owense's pass is caught by Kerry Taylor. And Taylor crosses midfield to about the 53-yard line. He'll be close to the first down, maybe about a half a yard short. There is Chris Haynes. He knows what this passing game is all about. His quarterback at Notre Dame was Joe Montana. So they actually miss it by a full yard. It is 2nd down, a yard to go. To Kerry Taylor, a flag comes down as he was crunched by John Pointer, the linebacker, number 47, and it's against the Toronto Argonauts.
Leaf, you make a point on that Skipper interception, how this defense of Montreal has gone, and it's an extremely good one. In all of their victories this year, the only one in which they have not won because, or really with, a very key play by the defense was the win over Calgary last Sunday. Every other one is at the big defensive play.
27, 2nd down repeated.
Well, even last week, Bill, in that win over Calgary, Aaron Hill made a great hit on Lewis Walker, as a matter of fact, and it was John Pointer stripped the ball loose, and that went on to another touchdown that kind of salted away for them. John Pointer is the injured linebacker for the Montreal Concordes right there. But you're right, Bill. They play excellent defense, and really the offense has capitalized on their opportunities this year.
I don't think that Pointer was hurt on the hit that he made on Kerry Taylor. I suspect that Paul Gray, the other linebacker who was coming in to help out on the tackle, fell on his leg.
Well, now, Pointer, who is a former Argo, of course, and came out of Edmonton and has done just a tremendous job for this club. If they lose him, it's going to be tough filling in because anytime you lose a first-string quarterback, you're in trouble.
All right, we've got 9:19 left to play in the opening quarter. Montreal's ahead 7-0, and we'll be back to see what the Argos can do on second down in just a moment. Pressure. He's been relieved of his field goal responsibilities, is still a premier punter. And Joe Gallant looking for his first ever victory against the Toronto Argonauts, but this is what he's been gearing for since the inception of this Montreal Concordes team. As John Pointer leaves the field, he's got a unit that he feels is capable of winning the Eastern Conference. This will be a severe test for them tonight. Toronto with a 2nd and 12 back at their 45-yard line. Oh, as he throws, there's a flag comes down. Harry Skipper is going to be called for defensive pass interference as he and Terry Greer became entangled.
That's a good call. Harry's not arguing at all. You see Terry Greer going down. He's going to finally break it to the outside, but Harry Skipper is going to try work through the ball. The incidental contact, and that's a good call by the official.
The word we get on John Pointer is that he has suffered a dislocated elbow on the left arm.
Well, that's bad news for Montreal, and they've got bad news now because Toronto has a first down at their 43-yard line. Kerry Taylor, the ball carrier, has absolutely nowhere to go. Might have picked up a yard. Steve Rocky and Doug Scott in to make the stop. There's the look at the part of the ball club that Bob Obilovich feels has been the most consistent, their offensive line. And there's the defensive matchup for the Montreal Concordes. Sandy Armstrong had a terrific game against Calgary last week. The newcomer is Brett Williams, although he did play at that defensive tackle spot last week. Hohensy's pass was right off the hands of Paul Pearson.
Yeah, I think Paul would like to have that one over again.
Well, Hohensy drilled it in there, but Pearson wasn't able to come up with it.
He ran a good pattern, just brought it back to the inside and took his eyes off it when he saw Paul Gray coming towards him.
So we'll have an opportunity to look at Lance Chomick. Chomick has assumed the field goal responsibilities for the Argos, and this field goal try will come from the 48-yard line. It's wide. Phil Jones will concede the single point.
Pat, the furthest that Chomick has kicked a field goal from in competition is 52 yards. That occurred in high school ball. And then the best he did when he was at the University of Toronto was 48 yards.
Well, he missed that one from 48, but he does pick up the single point. And so the Montreal lead is now cut to 6 points. It's Montreal 7, Toronto 1. But because of the missed field goal attempt, Montreal takes over with the ball just outside their 40-yard line. The Ottawa Rough Riders evened up their season record, and hats off to Joe Moss and his staff, because, boy, they have rebuilt that club from the ground up. And they are certainly a factor in 1985. Chris Haynes on the reverse. Haynes has a big first down into Toronto territory at the 52 before he's finally brought down by Don Moan. A 17-yard pickup by Chris Haynes, who has a touchdown in the ball game on the reverse.
Now watch how close James Curry, number 74, who came to just trapping Haynes in the backfield for a big loss. He just can't make the play, and then Chris Haynes off and running. Good block out in front from Alan Reed and Rob Smith. 17 yards, and once again the Concordes are on the move.
And this is Dwayne Wilson. Wilson gets it into the 45-yard line for a pickup of about 7 yards before James Reed, number 70, the middle linebacker, brought him down. Montreal, the club in the CFL that rushes the most against the Toronto Argonauts, who have given up more yardage rushing than any other defense in the CFL. So it's second down, 3 yards to go. The toss again to Wilson. And he does not get the first down. William Mitchell, number 39, was there to bring him down. So, too, was James Curry.
That was a big hit by William Mitchell. You know, Pat, I really think in order for Montreal to be successful, they have to make Dwayne Wilson a big part of their offense, both running and catching the football. They used him really effectively last week on first downs, just out of the backfield. They averaged a little over 7 yards of reception in that game, and that was mostly on first downs, which really puts you in a good position.
Well, Montreal's in a pretty good position right now because it's third down, but they've only got inches to go for the first down.
Well, they got those big horses up in front. They average about 265 pounds across that line, so you think they could pick up a few inches.
And because of the versatility of quarterback Turner Gill, that Montreal offensive line has only given up 10 sacks all year, but they don't have to worry about that right now. They just want to get off the ball and let Gill pick up that first down. He kicks it himself, and he has it. But as Leaf said, that Montreal offensive line, 6'4", 265 pounds, that's their average, and they have 6 years experience across that line, an average of 6 years.
Some good ones. That left side, Miles Correll and Lloyd Fairbanks. That's half a house on one side of the line.
You ever notice when it's a good football game, time really slips by? We've only got 5 minutes, 20 seconds left to play in this first quarter. On first down, the give is to Alan Reed. James Curry had him and finally does get him back at the 50-yard line. That'll be a loss of 9 yards. Well, there was good penetration by Curry.
I was just going to say that. He's in there so quickly. You know, he almost made the play in the reverse. Watch him come on the left side of your screen. Nobody blocks him, and they really are running a sweep to the right side. They don't think they have to block him, and that's how quick he is to make the play.
It's second down, 19 yards to go, Montreal. The ball at the Toronto 50. He'll be short of the first down at the Toronto 36-yard line.
Well, that's still a big play, though. That's put them in shot for a field goal now. McTagg just sliding down the sidelines. Nobody really picked him up. He knows it's his own coverage, and he couldn't keep himself from going out of bounds. But what a great play that was, because now it gives Roy Kurtz a chance.
And Roy Kurtz has really been outstanding for the Concordes. He's kicked 9 of 10. His longest is 51 yards. This one will come from the 45-yard line. He's been extremely accurate, but he does have a groin injury that has hampered him somewhat, but boy, he has been effective. James Curry came rushing through there. Now was he drawn offside?
Now, I want to see how they call this, because the center's number 58, Glenn Keeble, looked like he was fooling around with the ball a little bit there, and that's what made Curry jump. I think it's going to go against Toronto.
So they'll still be short of the first down by about a couple of yards.
Now, wait a minute. That was Rob Smith, the right guard, that pulled up.
Number 74. Third down, repeat it.
I think Toronto got jobbed there. Kurtz has one of the nicest rhythms I've seen of any kicker. Just watch how smooth he is as he comes through that football.
Well, as we told you, he's only missed one. 90% plus is his field goal rating. And it's wide this time. It looked like an easy one for Roy Kurtz. But as I suggested to you earlier, he does suffer from a groin pull. He picks up a single point, however. And so Montreal's lead is reestablished at 7 points, 8-1. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's so severe, he said, it really hurts, agonizingly so when he kicks, and he continues to use electric impulses. He's got a little machine attached to the leg with pads, and he says that keeps it loose a little bit, but he said the only thing that is going to cure it and take away the pain when he kicks will be rest. And fortunately, after this game, they get a couple of weeks off.
Might just explain, Bill, that those little pads with the electronic current stimulate the blood flow through that area, and that's what keeps the pain away.
So the Argos start from their 35-yard line. Hohensee in a lot of difficulty. It was the penetration by Doug Scott, and then Steve Rocky was in there to help out as well. But Hohensee never had a chance because when he looked up, Scott, number 70, was right in his face.
Well, I think they're going to have to split this sack because Hohensee cut back in the middle. But, Pat, you're absolutely right. Doug Scott forced him back where he knew he was going to get some help. Boy, they've had great play all season long from that front four.
But I thought your point at the start of the game was so valid. They played tremendously well as a defensive unit. They rely on the front four, the linebackers in the secondary. They get good pressure, and they really have been outstanding all year. 2nd and 17. Hohensee on the move. Throws. Boy, he threw it into traffic, and the pass was caught by Paul Pearson. Good for a first down.
That's some kind of throw there. He was throwing into a big crowd, and Paul Pearson found just a tiny crack to get into, and Frank Kosick made the play, but what a big first down pickup that is. Mike Hohensee not afraid to fire that thing in there.
21 yards, the pickup. Toronto has the ball just outside their 45-yard line. 2.5 minutes left in the first quarter. Montreal leading at 8-1. Hohensee was looking for Terry Greer down the sidelines, but he had been tied up just a few yards beyond the line of scrimmage by Harry Skipper and never could get underway.
Some of our listeners may be wondering about Mike Hohensee and his origin, where he comes from. He is of Hawaiian extraction, but he was born in California and has lived all his life in California. However, he says, I'm a straightforward Hawaiian boy, he says, with the California credentials.
Played with the Washington Federals of the USFL. He was coached by Ray Young. And this time the pass intended for Greer goes off his shoulder pads. I don't know, was it deflected at all, Leaf?
I don't think so, Pat. I think the straight timing pattern, Greer going down, knowing where he has to go for the first down marker, rather, he just simply didn't make the catch. You know, a lot of it has to do with knowing you're going to get hit, because Harry Skipper is a guy that'll unload on you.
Well, he apparently did make the catch because the ball is now at the 52-yard line.
He made it cleanly right here on the sidelines, Pat.
Well, that was a great catch by Greer. This is Jan Carinci. In on the slot back reverse. He gets inside the 50 to about the 48-yard line before he runs into Doug Scott.
Well, I apologize to Terry. Hank Alisic's just fooling around with a ball in behind him on the sidelines, and I saw a ball fly up, and I thought Terry'd drop it. I apologize, Terry. I didn't think you'd drop a pass like that.
Well, he hasn't dropped too many, that's for certain. He's caught 34, and prior to that catch was tied with Kerry Taylor for the lead on the Toronto Argonauts. He is 2nd in the league in pass receiving to Ray Algard of Saskatchewan. Hohensee's pass was intended for Kerry Taylor, but he was just whacked the moment the ball got there by Aaron Hill.
Aaron Hill had a big game last week in Calgary, and right there he timed the hit perfectly. Made that big defensive play. There you see Vince Faison coming back into the huddle. What a great performer he's been. But Aaron Hill just times it perfectly, and then a little hit extra from number 42, Paul Gray, the middle linebacker.
Vince is the Denver boy, lives right by all those mountains with the great skiing. Is Bobby Layton up there doing your stats would know all about. I said, do you do any skiing? He said, are you kidding? He says, I'm not crazy.
That's what he told me, too. Vince been around for 10 years.
On 3rd and 6, Hank Alisic is punting. This is Harry Skipper. Oh, does a nifty job. Skipper is out to the 30-yard line on just a fine return. He put on 3 or 4 moves before finally Cliff Hewitt, number 15, was down to make the tackle. But let's watch Harry Skipper again.
Well, Harry came to play tonight. He's taking a little heat in Montreal and picks up some good moves. Nice punt return. Had an interception already in this first quarter.
39-yard punt, a 21-yard return by Harry Skipper, who is in some contract negotiations right now with the Concordes, and he said that's been preying on his mind.
Yeah, that can bug you. If you really think that you're being a little underpaid, it can play on your mind for a while.
Boy, Turner Gill had a lot of time. A flag comes down finally. Todd Brown is in behind everybody. He's down to the Toronto 14, but as I mentioned, there was a penalty marker on the play, and with that amount of time, I've got to think that there is probably offensive holding. James Curry picks up the flag and waves it to everybody in the stands, indicating don't get too excited. This one's coming back.
Boy, the referee told him to quickly put that flag down. Jury's going to throw one on him.
Well, you knew this had to be. I mean, he had about 8 or 9 seconds to throw the football.
Holding. Montreal, number 58. First down, repeat it.
That's the offensive center, Glenn Keeble. And so what would have been a 68-yard gain instead is a 10-yard loss.
Well, there's Glenn Keeble, the center. He's working on Mark Seal, and there you see he's got him tied up with that right arm.
So this will likely be the final play of the first quarter. First down, 20 yards to go. Montreal at their 20-yard line. And they run the draw of Wayne Wilson. Wilson is out over the 25 to about the 26. So he gets back 6 of the 10 yards on the penalty as the gun sounds to end the first quarter of play with the Montreal Concordes out in front of the Toronto Argonauts 8-1. We'll return with the second quarter in a moment. Offensive line just going through some of the necessary adjustments they're going to have to make. It's second down, about 14 yards to go. They swing it out to Alan Reed, but he gets to the 30-yard line and then slips up, and Montreal will be punting. Dennis Clay was there to cover him, number 14. Clay had a big ball game against Edmonton last week. So too did Darrell Wilson, and of course Carl Brazeley was selected the defensive player of the week. There's a look at our Chevrolet first quarter statistics. Montreal had 81 net yards, Toronto only 39. And the big turnover, of course, was Harry Skipper's interception that led to Montreal's touchdown.
Dick Comar's been giving that offensive line a real going over, as you pointed out, Pat, so maybe they're going to do some new things out there.
This is Kerry Taylor at his 28-yard line. A flag comes down, and so does Taylor. Nick Araki was on him right away. And we'll see what the penalty marker is all about. 52-yard boot by Mike McTagg. It's a holding penalty against the Argos. And of course, they're going to be put back in very poor field position, which is always a concern to the coaching staff with a rookie quarterback. Let's hear the call.
Legal block, Toronto, number 15. First down.
Well, the call is against Cliff Hewitt for an illegal block, and Toronto is forced back to their 18.5-yard line. Friday Night Football next week comes to you from Edmonton, where the Saskatchewan Roughriders hope to have some of their hurt people back. 9:30 Eastern Time. Owense's pass was behind Thad Jemison, and consequently it goes incomplete.
Oh, does Andre Francis read that in a hurry? He was shot out of a cannon. As soon as he saw Jemison stop, he was up there, and had Jemison made the catch, it would have gone for little or no gain at all.
One thing you know is that Hohensee does not get this club moving. There will be no hesitation by Bob Abilovich. He'll put Cassell in there right away. He switches quarterbacks very quickly, as he did for the past 2 or 3 years when he had Barnes going with Conrad Holloway.
Second and 10, Argos. And nowhere to go for Mike Hohensee. Sandy Armstrong was there. Brett Williams was there. Frank Kosick was there. 81, 71, 76. They were all there. Hohensee had no chance.
That's your basic team sack right there. Good pressure, good coverage downfield. This is why Montreal has played so well this year. They're getting a great defensive production. Look at those 4 guys right there. Hohensee didn't have a chance.
And you know who was responsible, too? Was Doug Scott, because he was going to roll to that side, but all of a sudden, Scott, number 70, was there, and when he had to reverse his field, all the traffic was there as well.
Well, when you keep the quarterback inside and don't let him break containment, your chances of getting a sack really increase dramatically.
Hank Olisic standing in his end zone, boots it high and deep. What a punt this is. From the 43-yard line, the handout went to Harry Skipper. They tried to reverse. Preston Young ran to his left and handed the ball back to Harry Skipper, but right in his face was Steve Delcole, number 57, to bring him down. Montreal leading Toronto 8-1. We'll be back in just a moment. This fellow, nobody knows the Canadian Football League any better. Obi has been with Toronto 3 years, 3 first-place finishes. They won a Grey Cup. They were in another one, and they lost in the Eastern Final. What can you say except the man has done a tremendous job as the head coach of the Argonauts. Montreal starts at their 46-yard line. Turner Gill's pass, a fine catch by Nick Araki. Very close to the first down marker in Toronto territory. Don Moen was there to make sure that he didn't get up and go. And he stretched out his full body for him.
That's a great throw by Turner Gill. He knew Araki couldn't catch it inside because Don Moen was there, so he just threw it behind him and said, I know Nick will turn around and make the catch, and he did.
And like all good receivers, he knew exactly where the marker was. He picks up the first down. There's the draw to Dwayne Wilson. What a fine tackle. Steve Johnson, number 19, just came slashing through there to bring down Dwayne Wilson when it looked like the sideline was going to open up for him.
Well, you have everybody else blocked, but the guy you don't have blocked is the middle safety, and he does such an excellent job, Steve Johnson, of reading the play. He just slides underneath Trevor Bowles and makes an outstanding play.
The pickup is about 3.5 yards. The ball is right at the 50. Second down, Montreal. Down into the Toronto 36-yard line. Probably the biggest off-season acquisition by the Montreal Concordes is this man, Mike McTagg.
Yeah, and Turner Gill made a good read, though. The middle safety, Steve Johnson, went to the wide side of the field, so he knows automatically I'm going weak side to my inside receiver, Mike McTagg, and Mike did a good job on that pattern.
Concordes are on the move at the Toronto 37. This is Alan Reed. But Reed has nowhere to go as he's dropped at about the 35 by James Reed, the middle linebacker.
Now, Turner Gill's really progressed this year on reading his defenses. You know, when he sees everybody drop back, as they did last week in Calgary, he just continually dumped the ball off to both running backs and got excellent yardage on first down. Now on that last play to Mike McTagg, he just watched the middle safety. When he went away, he threw to the right guy. He's doing a good job.
As you see, Turner Gill has not missed a pass so far this evening. A real nice controlled offense. Pass is complete to Alan Reed. And they rule that he stepped out just short of the first down marker. Forced out by Steve Johnson. They say that Rich Tomaselli, the injured fullback, whom Reed is replacing, is a better blocker. But I think Reed gives them a little more coming out of the backfield.
Well, the beauty of the Concordes right now is they always wanted Tomaselli as a blocker and as a short yardage man. Well, they've got Tony Johns on the bench, and he does an excellent job in short yardage. Alan Reed is a better pass receiver out of the backfield. So really, they've got both things with Reed and Tony Johns that they had with Tomaselli. They just used two guys to do the one job.
Third and a full yard to go for the first down. The give is to Tony Johns. He keeps fighting his way, and I don't know. It's going to be very close.
Very close. Let's see who put the hit on him, because Reed kicks him out, and then it's Matthew Reed, number 70, or James Reed, rather, number 70, the middle linebacker, made a great hit.
But they rule the ball is inside the 37-yard line, so it is a first down.
Well, they really gave him all of his forward progress.
This is what the Concordes do so well. Because they have a controlled offense, they use up an awful lot of time in moving the ball downfield. 9:35 left to play in the half. Turner Gill is brought down right at the line of scrimmage by Don Moen, who made a fine open field tackle.
Yeah, he sure did. Turner Gill's a tough guy to bring down, and Don Moen has really had some good years last few seasons with the Toronto Argonauts. Just did a great job. You know, the last pass that Nick Araki caught, he couldn't have covered him any better. It's just that Turner threw it to a spot where Moen just couldn't get to.
And as Leaf mentioned, Don Moen has been a fine player since coming from the University of British Columbia. And there's a lady I suspect might be cheering for the Montreal Concordes. The pass was, I think think it may have either been tipped away or just bobbled by Dwayne Wilson. However, it goes incomplete.
Well, Steve Johnson was right on him. They came with the blitz there. Johnson has to come up and cover the back. Let's see if we can see if he got a hand on it. I'm not so sure he did. I think he just distracted Dwayne Wilson enough that he couldn't hang on.
Steve Rocky has been sitting on the bench with a bit of a pulled hamstring. They're not sure if he's going to be able to get back in. With Pointer already gone, with Rocky, who's coming back from an injury now with that pulled hamstring, giving him a little more trouble, this defense of Montreal could run into troubles before this game is over.
Roy Kurtz's 34-yard field goal try is good. But Bill makes a valid point. Injuries starting to pile up on the Montreal Concordes. They lead the Toronto Argonauts 11-1. We'll be back in just a moment. TV poll for this evening. Should the CFL continue with a full interlocking schedule? You know what we're talking about here. Should they play home and home against the other conference? If you think they should continue to do so, the number to call, 1-900-720-3720. If you feel they should disband the interlocking schedule, vote no. 1-900-720-4720. There is a 50-cent service charge. Should the CFL Eastern and Western Divisional Alliance be maintained? Yes, 51%. No, 49%. That was our poll last Sunday.
Couldn't get much closer.
Trevor Bowles appears to be all right. The right offensive tackle of the Concordes was injured on the previous play. Jeff Townsend from his 10-yard line. And how did Townsend sneak through there? There's a penalty marker down on the field as Townsend got to the 42, brought down by Andre Francis. Holding against the Toronto Argonauts. These are the things, of course, that drive coaches crazy. The Argos and the Concordes are two of the least penalized teams in the league. Toronto is third, Montreal fourth.
Holding. Toronto, number 15. First down.
Well, again, that's Cliff Hewitt. That's his second major foul of the game, and Bob Obilowich is not going to be too pleased.
Tell you what's driving Obi crazy, too, and the rest of his coaches. They thought there was a face masking on the last tackle.
So the Argos start from their 24-yard line. The handoff goes to Bob Brock. And Brock gets about 2 or 3 yards, not much more.
Leaf, when we talk about Hohensee, he said that he's disappointed I didn't get to play behind Connie longer to learn his techniques and the way he reads, talking about Conrad Holloway, who was injured, and at home. I rather thought that Conrad would have been brought along here to talk to these rookie quarterbacks, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I kind of thought they might, but obviously they felt that the coaching staff can handle that job with Conrad here. You know, his experience on that bunch might be invaluable.
Second down, 8 yards to go. Hohensee spins out of there and gets the first down. That is really an asset that Mike Hohensee has. He has good speed, and he knows when to run, as he did on that occasion, to pick up the first down before Frank Kosick, the linebacker, in place of John Pointer, was there to make the stop.
Well, Pat, between Mike Hohensee and Mark Cassell, you can almost flip a coin between the two, but that's the reason he's starting right there. He's got quicker feet. He's got a little more quickness in the open field, and I think he picked up that first down with his speed.
First down, Toronto at their 37. Hohensee's pass was intended for Terry Greer, and again there's going to be a pass interference call on Harry Skipper. On first look, it certainly appeared as though Skipper came right over the top.
Yeah, it sure did. I'll have to wait and see on the replay here, but he's not arguing. He's just walking back out to his position.
Pass interference. Montreal, number 26. First down.
Let's have a look. Greer on the post pattern, and yeah, I'd say that's interference. Got the right hand on his back as he came through to make the play.
A little earlier, we saw a replay of what the Argo coaching staff thought was a face mask call that should have been made, but the replay shows clearly there was no face mask.
Pass is complete to Paul Pearson to midfield, and Pearson will pick up about 7 yards before Skipper is there to bring him down.
Yeah, good first down call by Mike Hohensee. Give it to Paul Pearson just out in the flat. He can pick up an extra couple of yards running, and now he finds yourself 2nd and 3. It makes it a lot easier.
Well, the Argos haven't really sustained much of anything so far tonight as we looked at Greg Holmes, number 71, on the sidelines. But this is a drive that has been impressive. They've moved from deep in their own territory to almost midfield. ONC dumps it off to Pearson, and Pearson is at the 50-yard line of the Concordes. That'll be a first down. Harry Skipper forced them out at that point. Well, Paul Pearson was really hobbled much of last year and the beginning of this season with an injury, a leg injury, but he certainly is coming into his own once again.
I'm sure folks around the country remember that big play he made last week against Edmonton, that 71-yard catch in the third quarter. That was the longest catch of his career.
First down, Toronto. The ball at the Montreal 50. Oh, nice fake. They fake the slot back counter by Jan Carinci. Hohensee kept it himself, and he should have a first down inside the Montreal 40. Hohensee was a little late getting up, but he appears to be all right.
Well, you see him fool number 77, Mark Hopkins, who was in at that defensive end spot, replacing Steve Rocky, and it's a good call.
We've got 5 minutes, 24 seconds left to play in the half as they measure to see whether or not it is a first down. And it is. Pearson has been the big pass receiver tonight for Toronto. He's caught 3 for 32 yards. Terry Greer has only 1. Kerry Taylor has only 1.
You see Steve Rocky walking around the bench area, and I suspect that he's probably not injured that hamstring too badly, and they're going to try and go without him as long as they're winning this ball game.
But he may be as valuable as any member of that Montreal defensive unit. Steve Rocky from Holy Cross. First down, Toronto at the Montreal 40. Flag comes down. Kerry Taylor makes the catch and is into about the 33-yard line. But where the flag came down, you've got to think that it is against Toronto. But it's not a holding call. It's a face mask.
Toronto's really hurting themselves here in the first half with some penalties. Cost them great field position on a kickoff, the holding calls, and now another good game on first down is going to be wiped out. Well, I think it occurred after the tackle, so wait and see how they interpret this.
Unnecessary roughness, face mask, second down.
Well, there's a look at Steve Rocky, the big pass rusher of the Montreal Concordes, not in the ball game at the moment, banged up. But Toronto now with a second down and about 17 yards to go for the first down. Hohensee sets up the screen. Kerry Taylor is whacked by Andre Francis. The fumble recovery is made by Vince Faison, and Montreal has possession in Toronto territory. Oh, they have done this so often this year. Montreal comes up with the big play. Watch the hit by Andre Francis. The ball will pop right out. Well, it actually came out before the hit. Vince Faison is there to pick it up for the Concordes, and they'll have possession when we come back. They lead the Argos 11-1, and we've got 4:42 left in this second quarter. Well, let's take a look at it. Kerry Taylor just wasn't able to squeeze the ball. It comes loose. Vince Faison recovers, but Montreal was assessed an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, so they're back at their own 54-yard line, but they do have possession of the football. Yo's pass is caught by Dwayne Wilson. Then the ball comes loose, but Wilson was able to fall back on it.
Carl Braisley came up and did a nice job to punch that ball loose from Dwayne Wilson. Let's have a look one more time. Wilson just going out of the backfield. Turnergill spots him. It's a good first down call, but as he turns upfield, Carl Braisley's right there. Watch, he knocks that ball loose with his hand.
So they actually end up losing about 3 yards on the play. The ball is right at the Montreal 51. Vince Faison, the man who recovered that fumble for the Montreal Concordes, getting a bit of a breather on the sidelines. Yo's pass for Mike McTagg was off his fingertips.
That's a nice position to be in when you got a team second and long if you're a defensive back. Just sit back in that zone coverage, watch everything develop, and makes it tough for a quarterback to find the seams in there. He threw that ball just a little high. Mike McTagg couldn't hang on.
But this is the kind of football game Montreal was hoping for. They would play well defensively. Consequently, they shut down the Toronto offense, and then they try to capitalize on whatever breaks they get. And they have to the point where they're leading it by 10 points with about 3:20 left in the first half. Not a very big kick by Mike McTagg. It bounces to Kerry Taylor. And Taylor does a pretty good job as he gets to the 29-yard line. Ken Cianconi was there to force him out. And I believe that's the first time we've mentioned Cianconi's night this evening as you take a look at Kerry Taylor. Well, at halftime this evening, we'll show you the highlights of that Ottawa victory over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We'll also have the Pacific Western Airlines CFL Stars of the Week, and Leaf and I will show you the highlights of this first half of play that the Concordes have led from the outset and now enjoy an 11-1 margin. First down, Toronto from their 27. He gets it out to about the 32 for a pickup of 5 yards. And that's where it will be when we come back with the Montreal Concordes leading the Toronto Argonauts 11-1. We'll have the Argos second down play when we return.
Gold medal sports watch. For over a century, the world has relied on Longines. So can you.
Down 5 yards to go. Holmes' pass for Carinci goes over his head out of bounds. And the Argos will be punting with 2 minutes and 38 seconds left to play in this second quarter. Hohensee has certainly not enjoyed the kind of evening that he did last week against Edmonton. At the conclusion of the night's ball game, we'll have the Carling O'Keefe Sports offensive and defensive game stars. And it's going to be a task tonight because so many people defensively have played well for Montreal. And it's been a very low-scoring ball game.
Sure has. On the Toronto side, James Curry's had a heck of a game, too.
Absolutely, as Hank Lissick is now back in punt formation on 3rd and 5. Preston Young moves up to his 42 to take it. And Young gets to the 50. So the Concordes, again, are going to have very good field position. And that's really been the story of this first half. Montreal has never really been in a bind from a field position point of view. And the Argos have really been pushed back.
Well, it's the kind of game Joe Galette loves. He'd just as soon win 18-15 or something rather than try and get into a shootout with a ball club. He knows he can play tight defense, and as long as they can score just enough points, he'd be happy to do that.
We were asking Bob Obilovich his impressions of Turner Gill. He thinks he's really come along in his 2 years. He said, you've got to remember that they've changed the offense twice on him. They go more to the drop back now than they did last season. And that's what he does this time. Sets up the screen for Alan Reed. Run by Alan Reed from the University of Minnesota all the way down to the Toronto 10-yard line. A 51-yard gain on the screen pass from Turner Gill.
Watch the great block he gets from number 58, the center, Glenn Keeble, along with Lloyd Fairbanks, and then he does some great work on his own. Breaks the tackle, and the young man from Minnesota just keeps on running. Steve Johnson finally brings him down.
So the Concordes have the ball at the Toronto 10-yard line. First down. Flag is down. Gill is going to run it himself. Touchdown, Concordes. The touchdown will stand. The Argonauts were offside. And the Montreal Concordes are out in front 17-1 with the point after yet to come. Let's watch Turner Gill.
Nice job getting outside. He's got great protection, and everybody in man-to-man coverage runs into the end zone. It opens up like the Red Sea, and there he goes for a touchdown.
You know, Leaf, you look at Turner Gill, 3 weeks ago, he did not play well. Last week, he played well in Calgary, and now he seems so full of confidence, it's as though it's all unfolded before his very eyes.
Well, he's the guy that's made it happen, though. Last week, over 300 yards in passing. Tonight, just doing a masterful job correcting that offense. He's 10 of 12, 113 yards, rushing now for the second Concordes touchdown of the ball game, and they played error-free football, and I think that's why they're as good as they are this year.
And that was run all the way. Turner Gill just rolled out of there, and the former All-American from the University of Nebraska has given the Montreal Concordes an 18-1 lead over the Toronto Argonauts. And if you'd ever meet this man, Joe Gallant, you'd like him. He really is a personable fellow, and he's showing this year that he knows how to put a football team together. It took them a while. They didn't even have uniforms or footballs when he took over this franchise. He's done a masterful job, and he's got a very good football team in 1985.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the crowd is tonight, too, because they've got the biggest crowd of the year by far, and they're having some fun now. They got the wave going. The team's out front 18-1, and football is alive and well in Montreal.
Leaf, I was going to say, I've had the opportunity of interviewing Turner Gill 3 or 4 times at least during our telecast this season. And these interviews came when he was getting reports that he was inconsistent, that the offense wasn't moving, that he was going to have to get it rolling. But the thing that always impressed me about Turner Gill, no matter how it was going, he shows great confidence in his abilities.
Mike McTagg's kickoff chases Kerry Taylor to his 3-yard line. And Taylor gets him back to the 25. Let's make that Jeff Townsend 30, not 20. Townsend gets it back to the 25, and so with 1 minute and 48 seconds left, that's where the Argos are going to take over.
Well, how about Frank Kosick, number 76, got hit about 3 times and still got himself in on the action. You know, special teams is nothing more than desire. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of talent to run down, but you've got to be hungry and want to go in and make the tackle, and he sure did.
You know, some people forget that the Montreal franchise was really outstanding. When this stadium first opened, they were drawing crowds of 60,000. And then the franchise went right down the tubes, but it seems to really be coming back. There is talk in the streets of Montreal. The cab drivers will talk about the Concordes. The place isn't packed yet, but every single game this year, the attendance has been increasing. Tonight, they've got a lot of competition. Tina Turner's in town playing a concert. The tennis championships are on.
That's right.
There's our poll. Should the CFL continue with a full interlocking schedule? You feel, yes, they should. Vote 1-900-720-3720. If you think they should scrap it, 1-900-720-4720. There's a lot of interest in these polls, too, particularly at head office of the CFL. They're really paying attention.
Well, they sure are. You know, it's an interesting question tonight from the fan standpoint. You want to see the Western teams come in the East and vice versa. You know, if you're Harold Ballard, he'd just soon have Toronto Argonauts come in there about 8 times a year. So, interesting question.
Argos again starting in a hole. Their best field position to start any drive was the 35. That really has been the big difference in this first half. Toronto has always been stuck back in their own territory. Is upended by Aaron Hill, who just came knifing through, and he said, good, you want to run, you can pay.
Yeah, and he did pay. I think Hohensee got up just a little bit slower than he usually does. Aaron Hill got a good shot. It's that fake counter to the slot back, and then he just naked bootlegs it out to the outside. And watch Aaron Hill. He unloads right there. Got him right on the knee.
The gain was about 6 yards, make it 2nd and 4. Toronto at their 31. Is complete to Paul Pearson, who has the first down and is forced out at the Toronto 44-yard line by Ken Cianconi.
Boy, Paul does a nice job on that little out pattern. Turns it upfield. 8-year pro from UBC. Just breaks it to the outside. He knows he only needs a couple of yards for a first down. Watch how he eludes the tackle of Harry Skipper and then takes it upfield again.
Paul Pearson has really developed over the last few years into one of the premier receivers in the Canadian Football League.
Well, he's dependable and always knows where that first down marker is, can find the seams in his own coverage. He's a quarterback's dream to have as an inside receiver.
Hohensee looks down the middle, complete to Terry Greer. He has the first down at the Montreal 52 before Aaron Hill makes the hit with 1:19 left to play in this second quarter. Montreal out in front of Toronto 18-1, but the Argos are on the move. They will not huddle up here. Terry Greer has given them a first down, so they start right away at the 51. Hohensee bobbled the pass from center, but the Argos got it back.
Boy, the Argonauts have had some bad luck tonight. That's a disaster of a play right there when you can't handle that snap from quarterback. You waste it down. They've had some penalties that have hurt. Things just have not gone their way in the first half.
Bill, it's fairly humid up here. What is it like at the field level?
Not humid at all, Pat, at field level. As a matter of fact, it is very comfortable. I don't feel any humidity, as a matter of fact, at the field level.
Argos lost about 3 yards on that play. Hohensee is dropped by Doug Scott. So again, that Montreal defensive unit, Doug Scott, who's having just an unbelievable night out there for the Concordes, is there to record the sack. Watch him, number 70.
Well, the 6-year veteran from Boise State had 4.5 sacks coming into this ball game. Already been in on one other and picks up another by himself. That should give him 6 on the season. Boy, what a front four they've got. Doug Scott.
They've called a timeout, the Montreal Concordes have, with 1:08 left to play in this first half, and Montreal out in front, 18-1.
It's been a while since you've seen the players come out with a smile on their face, and the cheerleaders, they're happy. Everybody's happy here at the Big O.
And I'll tell you, we're happy, too, because our good buddy Frank Rigney is being inducted into the Hall of Fame tomorrow in Hamilton, and the annual Canadian Football Hall of Fame game will be played on Sunday. This Sunday in Hamilton with the Tiger Cats hosting the Grey Cup champion Winnipeg Blue Bombers at 1:30. Winnipeg and Hamilton over the years have always had some classic games. This one should be no different.
Well, Riggs is really picking up the honors this year. Hall of Fame, CFL Hall of Fame Sunday in September. He'll be inducted into the Manitoba Hall of Fame, and quite deserving. I know his wife Donna and daughter Kathy will be down in Hamilton for the celebrations this weekend.
Bill Zock, Tony Gabriel, and Frank Tyndall, all good friends. As you take a look at Mark Cassell warming up on the sidelines, Bill Zock, Tony Gabriel, Frank Rigney, and all of those folks will be in Hamilton for the annual induction into the Hall of Fame. Phil Jones on the return for Montreal takes it right up to about the 23-yard line with 57 seconds left. Dan Rasovich, as he was with Ottawa last year, always first man down, was first down this time for the Argos. Phil Jones. He had a big game in Calgary last week, made an interception.
Yeah, he sure did. I thought that was one of the turning points, one of the 2 turning points in the game. The fumble caused by John Pointer and then the interception by Phil Jones really turned it around.
Now let's see. Do the Concordes play it conservatively? Well, they give the handoff to Dwayne Wilson, and Wilson really keeps those legs pumping and gets to the 30-yard line for a pickup of about 8 yards.
I honestly believe he's the key to their offense. When he's going, catching, and running the football, everything else seems to fall in place. James Reed, the middle linebacker for the Argonauts, takes on the block of number 68.
And was able to make the stop despite the fact that he was turned right around. So the pickup is 8 yards, make it 2nd and 2. And again, they give to Wilson. And he's out to about the 33, which will give Montreal a first down. James Reed again, the middle linebacker, along with Mark Seal, 76, there to make the stop. 30 seconds left now in the first half. They're out at the 33-yard line. You want to put it up here, Leaf, or do you just want to run it out?
Yeah, I think I'd be happy with an 18-1 lead at halftime. You played an error-free half. Let's keep it that way. What do I know?
Well, Gill is going to go deep, looking for Todd Brown. And it goes incomplete. Brown very nearly made the reception after the ball had been tipped in the air, either by himself or Bo Metcalf. They both went up for it. And it almost came down and landed right on his stomach, but it then went to the turf. Well, it's funny. I would have agreed with your comment because knowing Joe Gallant and
You know, if you're going to throw the bomb like that, there's only 7 seconds remaining. It's as good as a punt if they pick it up. So, that's not a bad call at all. Turner took a pretty good shot from Walter Ballard when he let that ball go, too.
They're not going to go deep this time, I don't think. Just going over the middle to Alan Reed. And Reed will run out the clock. Despite the fact he picks up the first down, the Montreal Concordes lead the playing field with the thousands of fans here in the Olympic Stadium giving them a standing ovation, and why not? They have played a terrific first half of football, leading the Toronto Argonauts 18-1. Bill?
One of the all-time greats, without question, is a Canadian receiver, Paul Pearson. Pearson had his great year last year. Paul, you were injured at the start of this year, but now you've come into your own. You had a great game last game, and I gather the injury's all better.
Yeah, it's nice to play almost healthy, but I can play a little better, and I'm going to keep working at it, and hopefully the whole team can play a little better, and we can come back the second half.
Well, there's no question the heat's going to be on the offense as you trail 18-1. Now, what do you think you can do that you haven't been able to do in the first half?
Well, right now it's a combination of everyone blowing it, really. A lot of times the offensive line has broken down. I've dropped the ball, and sometimes the quarterback's throwing a bad ball. So it's the whole bunch of us, and from what I've seen, I feel Montreal's just out hustling us right now.
What about playing with a new quarterback, a rookie, Mike Hohensee? Does this make it tough?
It's tough on him. It's hard to work with a new guy. And, plus, we're used to a guy like Connor Holloway, who's been in the league for so long and is such a great quarterback. But we can work things out. Hopefully, we'll do better in the second half.
Paul, Connie's looking at you right now. What do you think he's saying?
I know he's shaking his head and doing some other things. How you doing, Dad? How the kids?
Well, I tell you what. He'll get you for that one anyway when you get back later. All right, Paul, let's hope you have a good second half.
Thanks, Bill.
Fine. Thanks for joining us. The score is Toronto 1, Montreal 18, and this is CTV's Friday Night Football.
Good evening, everyone. Last night's game in the Canadian Football League featured the two Rough Riders. They met in the nation's capital. And this time, playing at home, the Eastern Riders came up big.
Over 20,000 fans at Lansdowne Park are looking for hometown heroics, and they get them. J.C. Watts, Ottawa's multi-purpose quarterback, shows his running skills here. In trouble in his own end of the field, Watts scrambles out of danger, dancing up the middle of the Saskatchewan defense. 2 plays later, it's 2nd and 15. Watts goes to the air, firing outside to Mike Caterbone. And the Western Riders defense, so sharp last week, looks ragged here. Caterbone runs with impunity and some blocking. On the final play of the first quarter, 50 yards to score. 7-3, Ottawa ahead to stay. Change of ends. Here comes the Ottawa defense. Greg Marshall blocks the punt. On the doorstep of the Saskatchewan end zone, there's a mad scramble for the football. Finally, defensive back Ralph Dixon falls on the ball for a touchdown. 17-3 Ottawa at the half, more than they would need to win, as the defense intercepts Homer Jordan 3 times. Late in the fourth quarter, Chris Ziegler seals the win as he steps into the ball. The final is 17-4. Upcoming games in the CFL, the winless and the unbeaten meet tomorrow at BC Place. Sunday afternoon, the defending champions are in Hamilton's Ivor Wynn. And looking ahead to next week, Thursday, the Riders from the East back in action. They are in Toronto. CTV's Friday Nighter has the Saskatchewan Rough Riders in Edmonton to meet the Eskimos. The BC Lions home again Saturday to meet the Tiger Cats. And on Sunday, it is Calgary at Winnipeg. The Pacific Western Airlines Stars of the Week are next. This is CTV's Friday Night Football. Defensive star Carl Brazeley of Toronto was almost perfect against the Eskimos, allowing only 1 pass completion in his zone and returning an interception 42 yards for a touchdown. Lineman star of the week, Saskatchewan's number 70, Gary Doolin. His unrelenting pressure on Ticat quarterback Ken Hobart forced quick throws, upset the blocking, and helped foil the Hamilton game plan. Pacific Western Airlines brings you the stars of the week in the CFL. Tonight, our CTV profile focuses on the offensive star, Saskatchewan tight end Ray Elgard. This outstanding Canadian picked up 157 yards on 8 receptions against Hamilton. His 42 catches and 634 yards gained make him the league's #1 receiver.
What made Elgard such an outstanding receiver is the very fact that the guy is a heavyweight. He's like 6'3", 225. He has all the athletic skills of a smaller guy, and he can find the open spots in the zones and also beat the man because of his overwhelming size. I think that the difference this year and maybe in past years for Elgard is the very fact that we like to set him out to the wide side of the field, give him a chance to use a little bit of motion. He reads defenses really well, and he and Joe Pawpaw just seem to have a grooved in. They spend hours and hours practicing some extra special cuts, and as a result of that, it's paid off. And the guy is just a tremendous competitor.
The biggest thrill for any receiver is probably getting in the end zone, you know, getting 6 points for your team. But I take a lot of pride in blocking people as well. You know, as receivers, we spend the whole game trying to avoid people, and it's nice to be able to give back some of the shots that they're giving you sometimes.
Elgard joined injured quarterback Joe Pawpaw on the sidelines this week, sustaining a serious ankle sprain in the game against the Tiger Cats.
This isn't exactly my idea of having fun with one of our Shenley nominations.
This injury, I don't think, will slow him down one little bit. He's going to bounce back from this. As far as him relating to the media, I know last year when he had a few good games, it'd be he didn't want to talk to anybody. He didn't know what to say.
As far as how I'm handling the exposure, you know, I don't really look for it, but then again, it's something that you've got to do for the good of the people who watch the game. You know, they want to see the players on TV. Last year, off-season, I stayed here in Regina and played some hockey and some team handball and worked a little bit. And this year, I plan to go back to school at the University of Regina, and then when school's out, I'm going down to Salt Lake City. I'm going to work out with some guys. Steve Kotz plays for Toronto, and Mark Stevens, quarterback in Montreal. We'll go down there and work out together.
This CFL profile on Offensive Star of the Week, Ray Elgard, has been brought to you by Pacific Western Airlines, serving over 45 Canadian destinations. This is CTV's Friday Night Football.
Get it on track. 18-1 is the score. Montreal over Toronto. Bill, what's new on the sidelines?
Well, what I wanted to tell you about, Pat, was a gentleman we met yesterday, a doctor of psychology, Dr. Lodato. Dr. Lodato is an extra member of the Montreal Concordes. He is the only regular psychologist on the staff of a Canadian Football League team. He comes up for every home game 2 or 3 days ahead of the games, and he goes to many of the away games. And his job, the doctor says, is to erase self-doubts in the minds of the football players on the Concordes. He said, we also try to heighten their level of concentration for the games. And the way we work it, we wait for the players to come to us rather than me going to them. And it obviously works. And as far as head coach Joe Gallant is concerned, it's a great addition having a psychologist on the staff of the Concordes.
Well, Bill, you know, I agree. A lot of people might say, oh, boy, that's really hokey to have a psychologist. But what he does is works with imagery and helps the players to relax. And, boy, when you're relaxed, you can perform just that much better. I think it's just another added edge that Joe Gallant gives his team.
Well, there's no hokiness about anything that Joe Gallant does as Hank Kalisic kicks it off for the Argonauts. Vince Faison, 3 yards deep in the end zone, brings it out. And Faison was only able to get out to about the 17 before Cliff Hewitt, number 15, was there to drag him down. So for the first time really in the ball game, Montreal is going to start deep in its own territory.
What do you mean, Pat, that there's no hokiness in Gallant? When we went into the press conference yesterday, he gave you and Leaf and me a frozen turkey each.
Well, that wasn't hokey. I think he was telling us what he thought of us. I don't know. But Joe's a great guy, and we've had just a wonderful rapport with him since he's been here. First down, Montreal, the ball at their 17-yard line. Turner Gill, number 12, is at quarterback, and he hands the ball off to Alan Reed. Boy, you can hear the popping down there. Bo Metcalf ran into him, bounced right off as Reed gets it out over the 25 to about the 26 before Don Moan finally makes the tackle.
Yeah, they got that big offensive line in front of him. He got a good block initially, but he really splits those tacklers. That's what they teach all the backs. When you're coming up against a couple of tacklers, just try and split them. You never know what might happen. He snuck through and had a good 9-yard gain.
Wow. You know who knows Reed better than anybody, Leaf and Pat? That's Roger Thomas, the Argo backfield coach. He coached them in Minnesota.
And they knew he was a good one. It's second down, a yard to go. This is Johns, and Tony picks up the first down for the Concordes. He is the man they give the ball to in short yardage situations, And he has come through every time so far this evening.
You know, we talked about Turner Gill earlier, that he's become more of a drop-back passer, and I think that's largely due to the fact that he's more able to read defenses now. When you drop back in that pocket, you're working with the whole field, so you have to watch where the middle linebacker goes and the middle safety goes, and then determine which side of the field you can throw to.
Gill did not have the luxury of working behind a first-string quarterback. When he came to Montreal, he was it. Swings it out to Reed. A flag comes down as Reed spins his way to the 35-yard line. A rough play penalty will be called against the Toronto Argonauts, and the Montreal Concordes are going to have another first down. It's probably on Walter Ballard, I suspect.
Yes, sir, referees. Roughing the passer, number 79, Toronto. First down, Montreal.
Walter Ballard called for roughing the passer. There he is, number 79. That's a good call.
Well, you're not kidding.
They have to call that every single time. Montreal first down at their 49. Ballard again is in there. This time he forces Gill to fumble the football. The Argos, Rod Harding, 77, picks it up, and Toronto gets a major break. Toronto has fumbled more than any team in the CFL. Montreal is very stingy with fumbles, but Gill was hit by Ballard. The ball comes loose. Rod Harding picks it up and gives Toronto the big break they need. We'll see if we can capitalize when we come back. The man that has given Toronto possession at the Montreal 37-yard line, and Mark Cassell is in to play quarterback for Toronto. Mike Cohency couldn't move the ball, but let's see what Cassell can do. And his first pass sails high over the head of Paul Pearson. Well, there's what Cassell has done as a quarterback with the Toronto Argonauts. And despite the fact that Cassell has played well on occasion, Cohency has played well on occasion, the Argos really do miss Conrad Holloway.
Well, there's no question about that. Conrad, a Shenley Award winner in the past, is one of the best.
Cassell's pass was intended for Kerry Taylor, but Paul Pearson was able to come back and make the reception because the ball was over the head of Taylor. And though he doesn't pick up a first down, at least he does pick up some yardage.
Yeah, really, that's a rookie throw, too, because that's the kind of ball that can be picked up very easily. That's just a floater, and Paul Pearson does an excellent job to come back and make the catch on that.
So Lance Chomick will try a field goal for the Argos. He missed on his only attempt so far this evening. But this is an important one because it would put the Argos to within 2 touchdowns as we begin play here in the third quarter. Chomick's kick is wide once again. And Phil Jones concedes the single point. Well, there is no aspect of the Toronto offense that is sharp at this point in the ballgame.
Well, you know, it's awful. You hate like heck to come out and start the second half with a fumble recovery like that and only come out of it with a single point.
You know, I'm sure a lot of people would say, Leif, why can a quarterback, a rookie, come in the second half of the ball game last week against Edmonton, look so good and not be able to do anything this week? But then the other club has had a chance to see him, haven't
Well, they sure have, and there's a big difference of coming into a ball game and starting a ball game. You know, I think it's a lot easier to sit on the bench for a while and have a look. We'll see what Mark Cassell can do in the second half, but Mike Cohency just could not get things going in the first half for them.
That was not the case with Turner Gill, who takes over at his 35-yard line. Sets up the screen for Wilson. Don Moen missed the initial tackle, but because he did have such good penetration, Wilson was never really able to turn it upfield, and so he only picks up a couple of yards.
Well, to this point of the game, at least, Pat and Leif, the fears of Babovilovich have certainly been borne out. And that is, and you had to think he said it with some trepidation, that whoever plays quarterback the best is going to have the winning side. And Turner Gill has been infinitely superior.
Yeah, I think you can say that about any game, though.
Well, maybe, but if the quarterback just plays halfway, maybe he can keep you in the game, though.
Yep. Gill's pass knocked away neatly by Carl Braisley. There is a penalty marker on the field. The pass was intended for Todd Brown. Boy, I thought that Braisley just did a magnificent job in batting that ball away.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. There's another flag down at the line of scrimmage, though, in the Montreal Concordes backfield.
Could conceivably have offsetting penalties.
I believe that's the case. Anytime an offensive lineman starts shaking his head, it's usually a pretty good indication.
Holding, Montreal, number 54. Pass interference, Toronto. Second down, repeated.
So they'll replay the down. Rob Smith, number 54, the right guard, was called for holding. Carl Braisley for pass interference.
Hey, get that left hand on him. You know, it looked like a good call.
Turner Gill does not get the first down, but he'll probably pick up a headache because Walter Ballard got the bonnet in there on him. Well, I'm glad to see Gill get up after that one because I thought maybe he had taken a whack that would keep him down.
Well, he's taken some enormous shots this year, and I think really it was James Reed who got Walter Ballard and not Turner Gill.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, those quarterbacks, they know how to dive low.
So Mike McTagg is back to punt on 3rd and about 2. Carinci allows it to bounce. Picks it up at his 30. And dives ahead to about the 37-yard line, which is where the Argos will have the ball when we come back. It is Montreal 18, Toronto 2. We'll be back with Toronto's first down in a moment. Well, it's tough to get that money out of Ralph. Mark Cassell dumps it into the middle to Kerry Taylor, and he just never did have it in his possession.
Yeah, he should have caught that. Boy, he tried to make a one-hander and just be casual about it. And when your team's trailing by 16 points, make the catch and then run with it. You know, that's not a hard ball to catch. They had it set up, too. Dan Ferroni was out front. Ian Beckstead. They had a good group of blockers ahead of them.
9 minutes, 55 seconds left to play in the 3rd quarter. It is Montreal 18, Toronto 2. Argos in desperate need of a scoring drive. Cassell fires it over the middle to Paul Pearson, but Pearson comes up a couple of yards short of the first down because Brett Williams, number 71, was there to hit him as he was coming across the middle.
Now, when you've got 2nd and 10, you're going to have to force the ball a little farther downfield because Montreal does such a good job of reacting to football. That's a defensive tackle, number 71, Brett Williams, that makes the initial hit on Pearson.
6 catches for Paul Pearson tonight for 57 yards.
Montreal is an excellent defensive team, not only any time during the game, but when they get a lead, they just clamp it down that much tighter.
Ankolisic will be punting to Preston Young and Phil Jones. This will be Jones at his 25-yard line. The ball comes loose because he wanted to hand it off to Harry Skipper, and the Argos come up with it. Well, of course, that's the treachery of trying those trick plays.
Yeah, Steve Delco made the recovery there, and I couldn't agree with you more. It shouldn't have been handed off. Phil Jones and Harry Skipper never got quite connected there. Bill Mitchell made the initial play, and boy, Montreal's led Toronto back in the ballgame here with that turnover. Second one of the quarter.
They have opened the door right now because the Argos have possession at the Montreal 23-yard line. Here's the reverse to Terry Greer. And Greer throws it back to Mark Cassell. What a block by Jan Carinci to at least allow Cassell to get inside the 25 to about the 24. Now,
what a bizarre play.
That's sad luck because Greer wanted to take it himself. But then it was blocked off because of Sandy Armstrong, number 81, right there.
Yeah, Sandy Armstrong just does a great job. Ken Ciancone's in good position, too. But Terry Greer has the presence of mind to throw it back to Cassell. Watch the block by Quincy coming right here. Bang.
And after all that, they got back to the line of scrimmage.
Can't quite see who the injured Montreal player is. Looks like they're working on a hamstring or cramp.
Mark Cassell has played about a game and a half for the Argos, looked very good in the game, and then last week against Edmonton couldn't get them moving. Consequently, he gave way to Mike Hohensee, and now he's back in because Hohensee couldn't do it. The Players International Tennis Final, or rather the semifinal, goes tomorrow. And then on Sunday, it'll be the men's final at 1 o'clock. The Laurier Champion Senior Men's Golf will be Saturday and Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. So you'll see it all here on CTV. Cassell's pass is intercepted. Phil Jones came through with the interception for Montreal deep in their territory. And again, Montreal bends, but they do not break.
Now, what a good term to describe them, too, Pat, because time after time this season, it seems they just come up and make the big plays at the right time. That time, Phil Jones, rather, sitting back in the middle of the field, reads the play perfectly, comes over, and for the second week in a row, comes up with a big interception.
Well, the Argos had the most interceptions in the league coming into this game. Montreal was 7th overall. But they've come up with 2 big ones right now. Concordes are still in trouble, however, back on their 5-yard line. Dwayne Wilson, the ball carrier, gets to about the 7.
You know, when you have your middle safety, as Phil Jones is, you like him to just sit back there as a center fielder, and then when the ball's in the air, hope that he's got the quickness to react to it. And that time, he just gave you a perfect example of that.
Well, the statistician Bobby Layden has pointed out the Argos have had 2 golden opportunities. They're the 2 last possessions. They got a single point on a missed field goal, and then they turn the ball over on the intercept. Alan Reed, as you see, is the injured Montreal Concorde player.
Yeah, the way they're pushing that ankle up looks like maybe a cramp.
Well, the last player that went off with a cramp, too, Leaf.
Thought you told us it wasn't humid.
I was just going to say that.
It's not.
Should the CFL continue with a full interlocking schedule? If you feel they should, dial 1-900-720-3720. If you'd like to see them just go back to a partial interlocking or strictly conference play, then you want to vote no, and the number is 1-900-720-4720. There is a 50-cent service charge. Just getting back to that game in Ottawa last night. You know, the Rough Riders have really rebuilt. But they have 2 of the most exciting kids that have come into this league in a long time, and Derek Zeno and Mike Catterbaum. And, I mean, they're 2 guys that you'd have to pay to go out and see. I mean, if I was in Ottawa last night, I would have gone to the game. Yet only 20,000 were there. Spotter Bill Marsden and I were commenting on it this afternoon. When we were kids growing up in Ottawa, you always went to the ball game if it was being played. They used to draw 16,000 or 17,000 people, but Ottawa was a third of the size that it is now. They have to hustle to get 20,000 out for a game, and I really find that surprising and I'm sure discouraging to General Manager Don Holtby.
Quick kick.
Yep. Mike McTagg with the quick kick. And Carl Brazeley watches it bounce out of bounds at the 47-yard line. Well, Joe Gallant showing you that he understands what Canadian football is about. That was a good play, a 40-yard net pickup.
Not a bad call at all. Tough play to execute, but Tag coming back from the slot back spot, and he gets a good punt away. You always hope for a good roll on the ball because you're not going to really have time to set up like a normal punter, and boy, he got the maximum out of that.
So the Argos start at the Montreal 47. They trail 18-2. Cassell sets up the screen to Bob Brock. And Brock has a first down to the Montreal 36-yard line. Doug Scott was there to bring him down. That's the first screen we've seen to Bob Brock.
And you wonder why the Argos haven't gotten to it earlier, because there's been so much pressure by that Montreal defense.
And they set it up as well as any offensive team in the league. Allow that defensive line to penetrate, and then Marc Gasol dumps the ball off neatly to Bob Brock and let him do his thing.
Brock is the injured Toronto Argonaut, and of course every time he goes down you worry about his knee, but it does not appear to be that area that they are worried about. Well, with 7 minutes and 4 seconds left to play in this third quarter, the Argos cannot keep throwing away these golden opportunities. This is the third time they've been deep in Montreal territory right now. They have only picked up a single point so far. Gasol again throws the screen, this time to Kerry Taylor, who made a good cut, but then was tripped up on a big play by Ken Cianconi.
Oh, did he make a defensive play? Kerry Taylor just put some excellent moves on it that looked like he was going to break away, and a desperation tackle by Ken Cianconi really saved the Montreal defense some yardage. Watch right here. He's just going to get a hand on him, brings him down. That's an excellent tackle.
So the pickup was 3 yards, make it 2nd and 7, Toronto. Gasol throws it to the release man. A flag is down, and we're going to have a roughing the passer penalty against the Montreal Concordes. May well be Mark Hopkins.
Yeah, I think it was, Pat. That's a good call. You've got to protect the quarterbacks. Without them, there is no product on the field, and the referees are doing an excellent job in this game to do that.
Bob Brock going back into the game. Ollie had a little bit of a hip pointer, but he is fine.
Thank you, Bill.
Roughing the passer, number 77, Montreal. First down, Toronto.
Well, it is Mark Hopkins called for roughing the passer.
You're going to get a good look at it. The ball is released and gone, and he just keeps on going and gives him a shot. Got to protect those QBs.
Is in there in place of Steve Rocky, who hasn't played this half. Oh, Brock was just rocked as he got to the line of scrimmage by Brett Williams, number 71.
Well, he played in his first game with the Concordes last week against Calgary. Spent some time in the USFL, but he slips the block of Tony Antunovic and makes a heck of a hit on Bob Brock.
Brock got back to the line of scrimmage, which is the 17.5-yard line. 5.5 minutes left to play in the third quarter. Gasol going to the end zone for Jemison. The pass was very nearly intercepted. There are flags down. There's going to be an interference call either against Andre Francis or Thad Jemison.
Interference. Montreal number 1. First down.
Well, I'll tell you, Toronto has not done anything on this drive, but they've capitalized on penalties.
Well, Montreal. There's Andre Francis. There's the initial arm on there, and a little bit of a push, and that's an excellent call. You're right, Pat. Francis also injured on the play. Concordes fans don't like that, but they don't have the luxury of the replays that we do, and clearly indicated that was interference.
Well, you never get coaches to agree with you, but I think the quality of the officiating in the CFL this year is better. Now, every coaching staff will disagree with that. They are always down on the officials, but in the games that we've seen, I think the CFL standard of officiating is the best this year that I've ever seen it.
You know what we have heard, Pat, around the league as we travel through all the teams, and that is that Barkley, the new head of the officiating, they're very high on the work he has done with the officials and the way he listens to the coaches and has made changes. As an example, Montreal, who are being accused by Don Matthews of BC of having a designated fall guy because they would have people take injuries. Barkley explained the problem, but the league rules
Well, you're kind of fading on us, Bill. I don't know, but Don Barker has done an excellent job since taking over as the head of officiating for the CFL. The Argos have a first down at the Montreal 1-yard line. We're going to have ourselves a ball game because the Argos will likely punch this one over. Gasol keeps it himself. there's no indication. So it'll be second down.
Good penetration by Doug Scott and Brett Williams. Cassell's a big one, 6'3", 230 pounds. You think he'd be able to punch it over, but that defensive front four of the Montreal Concordes is pretty stingy.
Well, that Toronto offensive line has to get fired up right here. Cassell this time is into the end zone for the touchdown. Toronto is furious. They're saying that he didn't make it into the end zone. They're saying that it's third down.
Well, let's have a look from a ground level. Mark Cassell's can't really see what happened here.
Well, when he gets up, he's a yard in the end zone, but they rule that he was stopped. So it's third and goal to go from where they started, the 1-yard line. Touchdown, Toronto. Well, they were all within inches one way or the other.
Well, here's a look at it behind Ian Beckstead and Tony Antunovic.
I thought he was in on second down.
I did too, you know.
However, the touchdown will count. And it's now an 18-8 ball game with Chomick to try the point after. And he's good. So we've got 3 minutes and 39 seconds left to play as you see Mark Cassell score the touchdown that has brought Toronto to within 9 points. It's Montreal 18, the Argonauts 9. We'll be back with the kickoff in a moment. At your screen right now, he was saying the first time they stopped me, the second time I was definitely in.
And he said the third time, I'm not sure.
Neither am I. Well, there you see the scoring drive, 47 yards, but 32 of those yards were picked up in penalties. So really on 7 plays, the Argos only managed 15 yards. But they'll take it because they're back in the ball game now, trailing by 9 points, 18-9, with 3:39 left to play in this third quarter. And from the 8-yard line, this is Aaron Hill out over the 20 to about the 23, but there's a penalty marker down where the Argos kicked the ball out. They may have been offside.
Well, you hate to just let a team off the hook when you've got them really buried, as the Montreal Concordes had Toronto.
Offside, Toronto number 70. Kickoff repeated.
You like to make them earn every point that they get, not give them anything phony on the penalties there, but let Toronto back into the game.
Well, there's Brett Williams, the newcomer who's playing the defensive tackle spot. He's from a school I'd never heard of before, Austin Pay.
It's in California.
Well, there's, you know...
I picked the biggest state.
Yeah, why not? Well, Texas. People in Texas won't be too happy with you. But what I was going to say is, you know, people talk about, you know, are there enough football players to go around? You could start 40 leagues. There's thousands of schools.
Patio, they're like streetcars. Always one coming.
So Hank Olisic will set it up now at the 40-yard line. Montreal played just a sensational first half. They led it 18-1. But the Argos have scored 8 points here in the third quarter and are now back in it. Hank Olisic performs the kickoff duties for the Argos. Angles this one towards the sideline, but he forces Aaron Hill to take it there. And Hill is upended by Jan Carinci as he crosses the 35 to about the 37-yard line. 4 games so far this season, the Montreal Concordes are up 32,761 people in attendance. From the 4th game at home last season, the Montreal crowds have gone up 10,560 per game.
Well, they've had a good product on the field.
Yep.
Oh, this is another good screen setup.
And this is Alan Reed, who crosses the 40 to the 41-yard line for a pickup of about 5 yards.
And Don Moen just did a heck of a job to make that play because they really once again had the blocking out in front. Glenn Keeble to center. And Alan Reed still hobbling a bit. He cramped up a few series ago.
What the Concordes here would like to do, of course, is put together one of their patented drives where they can take up some time, too. 2 minutes and 40 seconds left to play in the 3rd quarter. 2nd down, 5 yards to go. Montreal from their 41. Gill fires. Mike McTagg makes the catch. And then it's dropped by Darrell Wilson, but he has the 1st down out around the 54-yard line. Pickup of 13 yards for Toronto native Mike McTagg.
Nice job. He was hooking to the inside, saw Gill in trouble, and just worked back outside to an open area. And Turner Gill read it. Mike McTagg made a great play.
But this really is the kind of game we anticipated. Montreal's strong defense, although Toronto has not played as well offensively as I thought they would. On the draw, this is Dwayne Wilson. Wilson was dropped by James Reed, and then James Curry came in to help as well, but it was Reed, the middle linebacker, number 70, who was there first.
Yeah, and then when you run a draw play, that's the guy usually that has to make the play. It's the middle linebacker. You got all the blockers up front, and he's the one that's got to read it, and especially in a 4-3 defense like Toronto uses. James Reed made the play, no gains.
Ball still at the Montreal 54. Gill throws wide open as Todd Brown. He's got the 1st down and is into the Toronto 32-yard line. Steve Johnson was there to make the tackle. A 24-yard pickup. Turner Gill to Todd Brown. Both went to the University of Nebraska at the same time.
Now here's what happens when you've got a rookie corner. He knows the blitz is on. He's got man-to-man with Todd Brown, and he just gave him far too much room. Turner Gill picked out the right guy once again. You know, sometimes those corners get a little nervous when they know the blitz is on and they got one-on-one and no help. So give Brown far too much room.
Toss goes to Dwayne Wilson, and Wilson had no place to go. Don Moen was there to turn him back in and make the tackle himself.
He got some good help from Mark Seal coming across that defensive tackle spot as well. He put the final hit on Dwayne Wilson.
You know, you're talking about Mark Seal. Mark's the boy who grew up in Ottawa, went to school in the States, actually went down to the National Football League for a little while. But Bob Obilovich, who knew him in Ottawa, who watched him play high school football, knew of his career in U.S. college football, said sometimes the pressure on a kid growing up in his hometown, then playing with the pro team in his town is too much. He said if Mark Seal can play to the capabilities that we know he has, he's going to be a great asset to our football team.
You know what he said, as a matter of fact, on Seal? He said, somebody said, what do you like about him? He said, he's the starting Canadian. John Pointer is back from hospital, drinking a Coca-Cola there, and he's got the left arm all bandaged up. It's the dislocated elbow. He will be out for 6 weeks, and the Montreal Concordes will be looking for a new linebacker. That's a big blow to the defense of the Montreal team.
Sure is. You know why? Because he's one of the big team leaders that they have. You know, they've got a real camaraderie that's developed on this Montreal Concordes team. Miles Grell and I were having a nice chat before the game, and he said the big difference this year, more than anything else, of course, we're winning, but he said the guys really like each other. We get along well, and believe me, when you get in the 4th quarter of a tight ball game, that makes a difference.
Well, they've always had a great rapport with Joe Gallant, too. Everybody that has played for him, or let's say the majority, have really liked him.
Lester Brown didn't like him.
I don't think Denny Ferdinand was crazy about him either. Flag comes down as Gill steps his way inside the 30 to the 29. Rod Harding, number 77, was there to make the tackle. He's the Argos' left defensive end.
You know, they're going to be called for holding Montreal, but even though Turner Gill did the smart thing, don't throw anything up. Just take the rush and let it be third down, because what you've got is still an opportunity for 3 points.
And as I suggested about 2 minutes and 45 seconds ago, Montreal wanted to put a sustained drive together, eat up lots of time, and they've done that, because were there not a penalty on this play, the quarter would have ended. But it cannot end on a penalty, as we hear now from referee Ken Lazarek.
Montreal, number 54. Second down, repeat it.
It's the second time that Rob Smith has been called for holding. He's their right guard.
Let's see, he's number 54, working on Mark Seal, and he's got those arms hooked in there. And once again, a good call. I think you can call holding on almost every play. Once again, Dick Komar working out the blocking assignments for his offensive line.
Second down, 20 yards to go. Walter Ballard with a quarterback sack on Turner Gill all the way back to the 52-yard line. And that's the first sack of the Montreal quarterback this evening. But it really forces them back as the third quarter comes to an end with the Montreal Concordes out in front of the Toronto Argonauts 18-9. We'll return with the fourth quarter in a moment. Back at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal as we begin the fourth quarter of an 18-9 ball game in favor of the Concordes, who are now punting on 3rd and 30 as Mike McTagg stands back inside his 45. This will be Carinci from his 18-yard line. And Carinci, who gives you 100%, regardless of the position he's playing, gets it out to the 26. Well, there's a look at our Chevrolet three-quarter statistics. Look at the net yards. Who would believe that any defense could contain the Toronto Argonauts to just 86 yards, but that's what the Concordes have done to this point.
One thing, though, Patrick, that is with a couple of rookie quarterbacks. If you had Condrich Holloway in there, it would be a different story.
I tend to agree with you, Bill.
So Mark Cassell, who has been good on 4 of 7 passes for just 20 yards, remains at quarterback, and he throws the screen to Bob Bronk. And Bronk fights his way to about the 32-yard line, but he couldn't shake Phil Jones. And Harry Skipper.
Yeah, Phil Jones, who's outweighed by a bunch, came up and made a pretty good play.
So the pickup is about 7 yards, make it second down, 3 yards to go, Toronto.
Well, that's the key for Toronto here in the fourth quarter. They've got to get good production on first down.
Cassell's pass was batted down. Brett Williams stuck the big mid up there as Cassell was looking for his wide receiver, Thad Jemison, doing a post pattern up around midfield.
Yeah, he had Thad Jemison open, too, but Brett Williams does the next best thing, get the big mid up there, and, you know, those are the kind of plays that can win ball games for you. Just the little extra things that people do when they're really out of a play, but get themselves back into it.
Brett Williams is operating with a sore knee that he injured earlier in the game in the first half. They were going to keep him out, but he said he wanted to get back in action, so they let him go back in, and he makes the big play.
So it's third down and 3, and Hank Olisic is punting. High. And pretty deep, too. This is Phil Jones. And Jones breaks it right up to midfield and in to Toronto territory before Dennis Clay was there to bring him down.
Yeah, they got the reverse on hold now and just decide I'm going to take it straight upfield and I'm not going to give up any yards or more fumbles, get some positive yardage and put my quarterback Turner Gill in good field position.
Should the CFL continue with a full interlocking schedule? If you want to vote yes, it's 1-900-720-3720. No, there's the other number.
As a former player, I vote yes.
Yeah, I love to see all the teams. Gill floats it up for Alan Reed, and they really made the catch inbounds for the first down at the Toronto 43-yard line. Well, that was a good catch by Alan Reed. He was right on the sideline.
And it was a good throw by Turner Gill to get it over top of Dennis Clay. That's a nice touch on the football. He's going to take a good shot after he releases it, too. Yeah, 1 foot down. Excellent call. Rodney Harding got in there a little bit late on Turner Gill as well.
Alan Reed has caught 7 passes tonight for 95 yards coming out of that backfield, and now he's the ball carrier. And he gets to the 40-yard line for a pickup of about 3 before he runs into James Reed, the middle linebacker.
Pat and Leaf, imagine if we didn't have an interlocking schedule and you wouldn't have a game taking place in September the 20th that we're going to be doing that I'm looking forward to. BC, Montreal, the Big O. Think what kind of a ball game that one's going to be.
Well, that's going to be some kind of game, Bill. I agree with you.
All of them really loom large now. We're into the 7th week of the CFL season. Gill has the first down to the Toronto 30-yard line. Dennis Clay finally brings him down. But Turner Gill, Montreal's leading rusher coming into this ball game, shows you his ability here.
Yeah, the key to that play, Walter Ballard got trapped to the inside. They lost all containment. Once that happens, the defense is in big trouble because with Turner Gill's abilities, he can either throw it downfield or run it, pick up the first down as he did.
Well, if they can stick this one in the end zone, it's going to be lights out for the Argos, I suspect. Alan Reed is the ball carrier, but he never really was able to get much traction because Walter Ballard was there the moment that he took the handout.
Seemed like the timing was not right on that play. It just took a little too long to develop.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Gill got the pass from center cleanly, and you're absolutely right. It sure didn't seem as slick as some of their plays. Gill has been good on 17 of 20 for 185 yards. He's also rushed 33 yards himself. Second down, about 14 yards to go. Rodney Harding drops him, well, right about the line of scrimmage. So we're going to see Roy Kurtz, who will try a field goal of about 41 yards.
Well, that's Rodney Harding's first sack of the season. But I'm impressed with Turner Gill. He didn't take a chance because he knew I've still got my kicker in good position to get 3 sure points. I think 3 sure points. Last time I praised Roy Kurtz, he missed.
It's always the way, isn't it?
Yep, sure is.
From the 41-yard line, Jerry DiTilio puts it down. Kurtz is good.
Boy, he's got a nice stroke. I can't believe how smooth he is.
Well, you've mentioned that before, and you're absolutely right. The Concordes go out in front by 12. It's Montreal 21, Toronto 9. We'll be back in a moment. The Hall of Fame game, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the defending Grey Cup champions, will be there to play the Tiger Cats. An important game for both those clubs. Hamilton now has to win a game because they're starting to slip behind. But they're only 2 back of both Ottawa and Toronto. Paul Pearson. And he gets to about the 38-yard line, not much further. Ken Cianconi was there, so too was Vince Faison. And they limit that gain to about 3 yards.
With the inductees in the Hall of Fame, I can't help but think about Tony Gabriel. He broke my heart in 1976 when he caught that long pass to the Ottawa Rough Riders, and they beat us 23-20.
Yeah.
That's why he's going to the Hall.
Oh, well, he was so great. He was just one of the greatest receivers we've ever had in Canada.
Sure was.
The pass is complete once again to Pearson. And Pearson lands right on the 45, which should give him a first down. Aaron Hill made the hit. And Paul is shaken up a little.
Pat and Leaf, you're talking about the Hall of Fame and greats such as Tony Gabriel. Looking at some of the films today of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the great eras during the 10 that Frank Rickney was with them. Coming out of that offense and making such great blocks. And we saw the Lincoln Locomotive, Lewis, one of the great running backs, of course, in the CFL. You just forgot what a great back he was. And you forget that the reason some of those backs are so great is because they got fellows like Frank Rickney who opened the holes for them.
Frank was not only a great football player, but he's just a tremendous guy, too. We're so happy for him. As you see, Paul Pearson landed right on the shoulder.
Well, he took a shot from number 71, Brett Williams, is what did the damage on Paul.
We've got 9 minutes and 28 seconds left to play in this ball game. It is Montreal 21, Toronto 9. Montreal led at 8-1 at the end of the first quarter, 18-1 at halftime. The Argos closed the gap. They scored 8 points unanswered in the third quarter of play. And now Montreal, with a Roy Kurtz field goal, has opened it up to 12 points. But really, it's still 2 converted touchdowns any way you look at it.
One of the best in the business, Fred Dunbar, out to attend to Paul Pearson.
Incidentally, at the Hall of Fame game this Sunday, the first 10,000 fans through the gates will receive a 1985 Tiger Cat team poster, which includes valuable fire safety tips from Hamilton's players and coaches. The game is at 1:30 in Hamilton on Sunday.
Oh, that'll make me go.
Pass is complete to Jeff Townsend, who is forced out at the 30-yard line by Aaron Hill. Pickup was 5 yards, so it'll be 2nd and 5. $26,747 the attendance here in Montreal tonight. That's the paid attendance. There appears to be very close to 30,000 here. Casal's pass was caught at about the 53-yard line. Doug Scott very nearly had him for the sack, but he was able to get away and throw the pass complete.
Well, he just did a heck of a job eluding the pass rush and makes a good throw down the sidelines, but Harry Skipper comes up and makes sure that the receiver goes no further.
So it's 3rd and a couple, and the Argos are going to punt.
I suspect that Harry will equal that total from last year.
Harry Skipper?
Yeah, he had just flashed 8 interceptions last year. He's got 2 this year. I'm sure he'll get up to that.
Oh, this is a booming punt by Illicit. Phil Jones allows it to bounce to Preston Young in the end zone, and he'll give up the single point. Another smart play by Montreal. They'll have possession at their 35-yard line.
You know, you see Preston Young and Phil Jones congratulating each other. They made the smart veteran move.
So it's a 21-10 ball game now. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Of a separated shoulder. Dr. Jackson tells me that it's going to keep him out of action for a while, but he doesn't know how long at this point. And that's a bad blow for Paul and a very bad blow for the Argonauts.
Well, it seems like in the last year he's just had one after the other.
Montreal starting from their 35-yard line. Give us to Dwayne Wilson. All the way down to the Toronto 53-yard line. Bo Metcalf finally forced him out of bounds, but that's a big play by Dwayne Wilson, and we'll check his rushing total for you. It's 72 yards tonight on 11 carries.
Well, Nick Volpe, our isolation director, has a good close-up look at him, and he just breaks it to the outside and outruns everybody.
Pickup was 23 yards. It's 1st down Montreal in Toronto territory at the 52. This is Tony Johns, and Johns fights his way to the 45.
Oh, I like the way he runs. Sorry, Pat.
Well, James Reed finally brought him down, but you're right. Boy, he looks like he's going to be a fine player in this league.
Watch him, I mean, that's a good hole they opened up for him, but he just takes on James Reed, and Tony Johns goes 6'2", and he's a big, solid running back. There you see Paul Pearson, when you got an injury or separation, get that ice on as fast as you can to keep the swelling down.
2nd down, 3 yards to go. The pass goes to Dwayne Wilson. Oh, big play by Steve Johnson, because there had been some good blocking to seal out the interior of the line. They had blocked the outside linebacker, and Johnson came just knifing through to make the stop right at the line of scrimmage.
That's the 2nd time he's done that in the ball game, and he has to come a long way from that middle safety spot. Did an excellent job.
Now it's 3rd down and very close to 3 yards to go.
Go for field position.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do. Mike McTagg is in to punt.
You've still got the 21-10 lead. I mean, you're in command, so don't take any chances at this point.
And McTagg is going to run. And he should have the 1st down if they give him the placement of the ball. You know, Toronto wasn't convinced they were going to punt. Carl Brazeley was right up at the line of scrimmage, and then he decided he'd drop back.
Well, they do a good job here. They fool everybody, including myself, as Mike McTagg cuts it back in. He knew where the first down marker was, and once again, Montreal able to retain possession. A little over 6 minutes remaining. They can now chew off some more valuable seconds on that clock.
Montreal 21, Toronto 10. The ball was knocked right out of his hands, but they rule that Turner Gill was in the throwing process, so it'll go as an incomplete pass. Rod Harding knocked his arm just as he went to throw it.
Time for the out and up, the pump fake, and there you see that. No question about that. The arm in motion.
Saw a good look to it. Miles Gurrell taking Walter Ballard to the outside. Gurrell, number 65, a nice tidy 285 pounds. He was up to 330 at one time, but he's lost some weight. I wonder how he did it. Don Moan giving chase to Turner Gill, and he actually forces him out of bounds at the 45-yard line, which is a loss of about 5 yards. I think you're going to be right this time, though. They're not going to try any trick plays.
Well, you never know with Joe Galati. He loves that reverse on the punt. Now he faked the punt out at the Dome in BC against the Vancouver Lions earlier this year and threw the ball. He's pretty tough to predict.
Well, they didn't pick up any points, but at least they ran the clock down to 5:30 left to play in this ball game. And now McTagg is back in punt formation once again. And he does kick it away. Brazeley punches it, bounce to the sidelines and out of bounds at about the 8.5-yard line. So that's a good punt by Mike McTagg. There's no return, and Montreal continues to lead it 21-10. We'll be back in a moment. Game next week will come to you from Edmonton, where the Saskatchewan Roughriders will take on the Eskimos. Boy, Edmonton is a fine-looking football team. They're 3-3, but when Matt Dunnigan is in there, as he was not against Toronto for most of the football game, they can chalk up some points.
I want to tell you about Matt Dunnigan in a second.
DeSalle's pass is good to Kerry Taylor, but he stepped out virtually at the line of scrimmage.
There's a calendar that's coming out on the market. It's going to be sold exclusively at Kohl's bookstores throughout the country, and all the proceeds will be going to aid in the Special Olympics Games in 1986. But it's a calendar titled Men of the CFL, and Matt Dunnigan is one of the players that has volunteered his picture, and he looks like he's right out of GQ.
Yeah, let's give some high marks to Kathy Clemens, the wife of Tom Clemens, who put the whole thing together and did a terrific job. LaSalle in desperation throws, and really he was just throwing it away, and the Argos will be forced to punt.
I might just mention a few other fellas that are in this calendar. Of course, Tommy Clemens, John Pancratz, Willard Reeves, Greg Marshall, Jan Carinci, Nick Araki, John Pointer, Ben Zambiazzi, Fran McDermott, Terry Greer, and Greg Vavra of the Calgary Stampeders. It's a fabulous-looking calendar. These guys are, well, they look like they should be models instead of football players. And Kathy Clements, you did a great job.
You know, you were talking about Greg Marshall. Did he play an outstanding game for Ottawa last night?
Boy, he sure did.
Greg Marshall is one of the best defensive linemen I've ever seen play in the CFL. Olysic's punt bounces to, well, let's see. Phil Jones finally covers it back at the 50-yard line, and a marker comes down. Are we going to have no yards on this one? This is the penalty that drives me the craziest. I mean, he wasn't trying to return the ball or anything else. He just wanted to cover it.
No penalty applied. First down, Montreal.
Good for you, referee Ken Lazaruk, because that would have been just a terrible call. So Montreal has possession with 4 minutes and 15 seconds left to play in the ball game. We'll watch it now as Preston Young and Phil Jones can't decide what they should do with it. And I believe it may have touched Preston Young, and that's why Phil Jones fell on the ball. Give us to Tony Johns. And through some tough going, Johns is able to pick up about 3 yards. Again, James Reed was there. Reed has played very well and will have to get a lot of consideration for our Carling O'Keefe defensive game star. And I don't know how you can overlook Turner Gill, because he has been the boss out on the field tonight.
Well, 21-10, not a lot of points scored tonight. Defensively, it's going to be very difficult to pick that Carling game star, but we will come up with somebody, and a deserving player.
2nd and 6. This is Dwayne Wilson. First down. Oh, what a run. Dwayne Wilson is inside the 15 to the 13, and all the way back there to make the tackle was James Reed.
Watch how he sets the block up. They're going to kick out Walter Ballard, 79, and then he makes that one step upfield and freezes everybody else, uses his speed to get to the outside, outruns Steve Johnson, and Dwayne Wilson has had himself a heck of a ball game.
Well, I'll tell you what a heck of a night it has been. 13 carries, 115 yards. And as Leaf pointed out early in the first quarter, they had to have Dwayne Wilson involved in the offense, and he sure has been. Montreal 21, Toronto 10. We'll be back in a moment.
The Carling O'Keefe Sports Offensive and Defensive Game Stars will receive a Longines Gold Medal Quartz Watch. Longines, the split-second timer of world-class events, the world's most honored watch.
First down, Montreal at the Toronto 13. The give is to Johns. And he's inside the 10 to about the 7. Boy, he's a load to bring down, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. I mentioned earlier, 2 1/4. He doesn't look that big, but that's what they've got him listed at. Excellent ball player. Brett Williams, he's had an excellent game tonight on defense. You know what I like about him? He got up that one play and got the hand up and knocked the ball down. You know, that tells me a player is giving that little bit extra.
Yeah, and he's also made some big plays. Definitely a consideration for our Carling O'Keefe defensive game star. Second down, 4 yards to go. Concordes at the Toronto 7. Turner Gill. The second touchdown of the evening from the quarterback from the University of Nebraska, the All-American Turner Gill.
Well, he really has no intent as he rolls out here to throw. He's just looking for a running lane. He finds one. He gets an excellent block from 54, Rob Smith. And boy, has he performed tonight.
2 teams in the Canadian Football League have won 5 games this year. You're looking at one of them in action tonight, the Montreal Concordes. Their record will be 5-2. They'll go 4 points up on the Ottawa Rough Riders and the Toronto Argonauts, and the BC Lions can become the first team to win 6 when they play host tomorrow night to the Calgary Stampeders. BC undefeated at 5-0, and they look like they could go the distance undefeated because they have a great club. All right, here's your final opportunity to vote in our poll. Should the CFL continue with a full interlocking schedule? There are the numbers for you to call. 2 minutes and 12 seconds left to play in this ball game. Montreal is going to win it. They lead 28-10. And they are full value for this victory. They played well.
Well, they're a pleasure to watch because, like all good teams, they don't beat themselves, and that's the way the good ones win ball games. Joe Galette, you should be congratulated. You've put a well-disciplined team together here.
Well, Joe's well-liked by everybody who knows him. He's been in the NFL, the USFL, worked for Johnny Bassett down in Tampa Bay. Memphis, I guess he was in Memphis. I don't think he was in Tampa Bay. He was in the World Football League. This is Kerry Taylor. And Taylor dives his way out to the 35. And Mark Cassell will come out to continue quarterbacking the Argos. Mike Mullins, he started, played the first half, couldn't generate anything. Mark Cassell came on in the second half, and he hasn't been able to generate anything either. Well, the fans here in Montreal know that they've got a good club, and the Concordes proved it once again this evening. They set up the screen to carry Taylor. Taylor is hit by Frank Kosick. Taylor is from South Connecticut State. We've told you his story before. Came to Toronto as a defensive back. They converted him this year to a slot back, and this is how he's played most of the season. Played well. Second down, 2 yards to go, Toronto. Jan Carinci, no sir, no first down because of Phil Jones. Montreal playing as hard right now as they were when the game started.
Well, it's fun to play defense when you're ahead 28-10, but the Concordes full measure for their victory here tonight. The fans at the Big O are really having a good time, too.
And Toronto has not been able to get the ball to Terry Greer, and boy, has that been a factor.
Well, he and Conrad Holloway had some kind of magic on when they played together. Of course, Conrad's not here. And
there's another interception by Harry Skipper. Touchdown. No, they rule he stepped out at the 1-yard line. And boy, Leaf, is he making you look good tonight. You said he'd probably end up with as many interceptions as last year. He only had 1 coming in. He now has 3.
Well, he makes a great play here. Anticipates perfectly and fights the ball away from Jeff Townsend. Stays in bounds, and now it's just a foot race between himself and quarterback Mark Cassell. Yeah, the foot goes out of bounds. That's a good call. I'd almost put him in a running back, let him get the touchdown. And of course, they won't do that. But Harry's had himself some kind of night.
Well, he's another one who's got to be considered for our Carling O'Keefe Defensive Game Star. Montreal has the ball at the Toronto 1. Toss goes to Dwayne Wilson. They'd like to see him score because he's had a big night, but he's going to lose a yard or 2 on that play. Ron Moan again was there. Dan Rasovich too.
Well, their secondary coach in Montreal is a fellow called Dave Ritchie, and he's just done an excellent job molding this whole group together. You know, they play so much zone coverage. You have to be disciplined, and that's up to the coach to get you that way, and he's done an excellent job. Joe Glad's got a good staff around him.
They've got 1 minute to play. It is second down from the 3-yard line for Montreal. John's the ball carrier, nothing doing. And as we mentioned earlier, the Montreal Concordes have never in their history defeated the Toronto Argonauts. That string has come to an end tonight.
That's a happy group there in the stands here at the Big O.
And I'll tell you why Montreal would like to score this touchdown. I mean, if it came to the end of the year and these two clubs were tied, it would be the differential in the games that they played.
And Toronto doesn't have their proper personnel in here either.
Turner Gill is tripped up and then just touched down by Steve Johnson.
Wow, he tripped up by himself. He had his 3rd touchdown of the ballgame there if the old turf monster doesn't grab his foot. Watch this. He just kind of slips and goes down on his own.
Well, there's a long way to go in this season, but boy, this is an important win for Montreal. The turf monster. I love that.
Oh, yeah, turf monster. He's a little guy that hides in that green stuff and comes up and grabs your shoelace.
Harry Skipper's probably saying, throw the ball again and throw it in my area.
Yeah.
Concordes win this one tonight. Cassell's pass looking for Terry Greer again, but it's over his head out of bounds.
You know what's good about Skipper, too? Like, he's not only a great pass defender and comes up with the interceptions, he can hit.
I'll tell you, there's a guy who could hit when he was playing Bobo Bilovich. Now, Obi is going to be disappointed in this game, but I mean, he knows the game as well as anybody, and you can't operate if you don't have a guy at the controls who can do the job for you.
Well, I think we got to keep this game in perspective, too. Montreal will now have a pretty good lead in the Eastern Conference, but they've still got 9 games to go for both teams. It's an important game tonight, but it's not critical by any stretch of the imagination. Heck, we're only in August.
Jan Carinci, the ball carrier, and he slips through there to the 15-yard line for a gain of about 9 yards.
You know, Pat and Leaf, I have no doubt that if he had his brothers, the head coach of the Montreal club, Joe Gallant, would say, hey, instead of taking 2 weeks off, let's keep right on rolling and make the next game at home, because they would undoubtedly almost double this crowd of over 26,000 if they did. At least I'm sure they would be well into the 30s, maybe the 40s, because this is a very, very excited crowd, and it's a bigger one than the one they had for Hamilton here when the crowd was disappointed as the Tiger Cats came up with a big game, and the 2 biggest that they have had since 1982.
Well, Bill, I can assure you the 26,000 plus that were here tonight will be back.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'll tell you, the only thing that I would disagree with, I think Joe's going to be happy to get the break because he's had a lot of injuries here tonight.
Yeah, I think so too, Pat.
Well, that's a good point.
But from a continuity point of view, I understand what you're saying. Phil Jones with the punt return. And Jones is into the 43-yard line. As the gun sounds to end a terrific performance by the Montreal Concordes, who increased their lead on top of the Eastern Conference to 4 points over both the Toronto Argonauts and the Ottawa Roughriders, as they convincingly defeat the Toronto Argonauts 28-10 here tonight. They are full value for the victory. They played all facets of their game well. Joe Gallant is delighted, and should the CFL continue with a full interlocking schedule, the league will be happy to hear you say this. And boy, you said it overwhelmingly. 83% said yes, 17% said no. And what more can we say except we agree with your opinions too. Bill?
You're looking at some statistics, Coach Gallant. What are they?
It's the passing statistics. Turner was 18 of 22, 82%. I thought he had a good ball game.
But did he have a better ball game than he had last week against Calgary, which you thought was his best?
Well, similar. I think Pat Marsden called it. He said that Turner was really coming into his own, and I think he's getting more and more confidence.
You had a few injuries in this game. Does that mean that these 2 weeks you've got coming up are going to be gratifying as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, we need the 2 weeks layoff. We got 17 days between games. We had that's a great win for our football team. We had Steve Rocky hurt. We had John Pointer hurt. We played the whole game. Aaron Francis got hurt, so Aaron Hill had to go to corner. We got some great effort out of some backup people, and I think that's when the Montreal Concordes have arrived, when they can put the young Canadian talent that we've got in there, and they play well. So that's something that's been a long time coming, but we got some good young Canadian kids, and they're playing hard.
Tell me, you have a psychologist, Dr. Lodato, on your staff. He comes in for every home game?
Mostly for me.
Yeah. Now, he works mainly with you and not the players. I was going to ask you, though, what has he done, do you feel, contributing to this club improving?
Well, we talk a great deal. He's got his degree in learning, and we talk a great deal about concentration, how these fellas can do a better job of their assignments, and I think it pays off.
What about your club now, as far as you're concerned? What is the biggest thing, the way they are working at this time with a 4-point lead? Is it confidence that they're showing?
Yeah, I think you get any young ball club, they have to win to get confidence, and they don't think anybody can beat them, and they're playing hard and playing tough. Like I say, we've had the injuries. They overcame that. So the next thing that we've got to do is execute a little better. We're not very pretty yet.
But you don't care as long as you win, Bill.
That's okay.
Asking a final question about Turner Gill. How much better do you think he can get? Where is he now in his progress toward what you think is going to be one of the star quarterbacks in football?
Well, I think he's going to be a CFL star. I really do. And I think his improvement is going to be more and more as we go on. He's the confidence is there now, and he knows what the defenses are doing. He's got a great deal of confidence in himself, and now what I like the most, the players believe in him, and that's really important.
Yes, it is. Joe Gallat, congratulations. A fine victory.
Thank you.
We seem to keep getting you on here as the winning coach, don't we? A nice job. So that's it. The final score, Toronto 10, Montreal 26, and CTV's Friday Night Football will continue in a moment.
And now, the Carling O'Keefe Sports offensive and defensive game stars as selected by our broadcast crew. From Montreal, quarterback Turner Gill is the offensive star. And from Montreal, cornerback Harry Skipper is the defensive star. Each of tonight's outstanding players will receive a Longines gold medal quartz watch. For over a century, the world has relied on Longines. So can you. The world's most honored watch, Longines. This is the CFL on CTV.
Montreal Concordes, Turner Gill, for the second straight week, is the offensive player of the week on our CTV broadcast. Turner, do you feel that you're improving every week?
Well, I think I am. Just getting a lot more comfortable out there and being able to read defenses, and our offense is finally getting the roll and putting points on the board.
Now, will you explain for the football fans what you mean by reading defenses?
Well, basically, it depends on our pass pattern. I'm either reading like the halfback, the free safety, and a lot of times I'm reading the Paul, seeing he's coming out, and maybe they come with a blitz coverage, and I'm being able to hit the receiver quick or go deep or whatever. So it depends on the play what I have called is who I'm reading.
Do you call many audibles?
No, not really. We don't have really an audible system. We just kind of read the things on the run, and our receivers adjust whatever the defense gives us.
Joe Gallat, your coach, said that he felt one of the things that was improving, in fact, a big item, was the fact that the players now had confidence in you as the quarterback and their leader.
Well, that's a good feeling, I have to have confidence in myself first, and then the team has confidence in me. We can all gel together as a team.
As you look forward to your career, where do you think you should improve? Where do you want to improve?
Well, I guess one thing we haven't been really successful on is hitting the deep patterns. And, that's one thing I hope I can improve on is hitting more deep patterns. A lot of people are playing intermediate passes, and we haven't been able to go deep. So, hopefully I can hit more deep passes.
In other words, hit those wide receivers of yours.
Well, yeah. We got good speed with Todd Brown. Chris Haynes has been doing a good job since he's been in there. So we're just trying to work at it.
Well, Turner, you found a game that you enjoy, and that's running. You ran for 2 touchdowns tonight. You thought you should have run for a third.
Well, for sure. I don't know. I think the turf grabbed me over there. I got a little bit too happy.
Said, hey, you had enough for the night.
Well, yeah.
Turner Gill, congratulations. Right. Another superb performance as the offensive player of the game.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Turner. CTV's Friday Night Football will continue in a moment. A 28-10 victory over the Toronto Argonauts. They increased their margin atop first place to 4 points over the Argos in Ottawa. Harry Skipper, the cornerback and defensive player of the game. Harry, before this game, the quotes and comments in the papers and on television and radio were to the effect that you felt you weren't playing up to par. You could play better.
Well, that's not exactly what I said, but, but I did come into this game. I felt that I could play a little better than what I've been playing, and, I wanted to concentrate a little more on my game. Just get back to my basic techniques that I learned through college and the techniques that I had coming into CFL.
Was one of the problems that your agent is trying to work a new contract for you? Does that prey on your mind?
No, that has nothing to do with the way I play.
Has nothing to do at all?
Nothing at all.
Then it was simply a case of you were getting away from your basics, the way you feel you should be able to play the game.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago, I kind of noticed, I talked to Coach Richard about it. I told him that, I feel that I'm not playing as well as I'm capable of playing. And I told him that during practice, I want to start, practicing, going a little harder in practice and just getting the basics back.
I'll tell you, that interception was a big way to start the ball game.
Yeah, I got a really good read on Greer coming inside, and I got a good jump on the ball, and, I was lucky enough to hang on to it.
Well, congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. CTV's Friday Night Football will continue in a moment.
It's 18-1 at halftime for Montreal. The final score is 28-10.
This is the best game I've seen them play in the history of this franchise, and what a boost it's got to be to them, Leaf.
Well, it's a big game for Montreal at home tonight because they're playing the Toronto Argonauts, who have traditionally been a big rival of theirs, and they were able to come up big, and they had 26,000 fans here. I think they really wanted to impress them to make sure that they came back and maybe attract some more, and I think they did a great job.
Well, I think they wanted to impress the teams in the CFL that they are for real, and there's no question about that. Let's look at a couple of big plays that happened late in the ball game.
Well, it was 21-10 at this point, and Montreal was driving, and you really want to kind of salt it away, put it away, and Dwayne Wilson just made a heck of a play. Set up the blocking there with Rob Smith kicking out Walter Ballard, and then he's off and down the sidelines for 43 yards. He didn't go out of bounds. He cut it back infield, and I thought that Dwayne Wilson just had himself a heck of a ball game.
Yeah, and really, he could have been selected the Carling O'Keefe Game Star as well, because it was the biggest output that he's had this season. But how are you going to deny this man, Turner Gill, the Star of the Game award?
Well, you can't, because he's the guy that's calling the plays and directing the controls, and he just had a great night once again. Last week in Calgary, he performed exceptionally well, and tonight he didn't let the fans down here at the Big O.
I thought Joe Gallat said something that was very perceptive. He's now getting the confidence of everybody on that ball club. And look at the performance by Montreal. 365 net yards, only 166 for Toronto, and that's what happens when you don't have the experience at the quarterback spot.
Well, we talked at the top of the show about Montreal's defense and how they win football games for them, and I think that 166 total net yards really shows how good a defense they have, and that can carry you a long way.
All right, Bill, what's happening down on the sidelines?
What is happening down on the sidelines, Patrick, is the fact that just about everybody has left. We have a situation whereby a delighted Montreal Concordes crowd of over 26,000 was on hand, where Montreal, as you pointed out, may have played their finest game since Joe Gallat was the head coach of this club. We also showed another thing, and that is when you don't have your first-string quarterback, you're in trouble, as the Argos were. Next week on the CFL, Friday Night Football, Saskatchewan versus Edmonton. It'll be 9:30 Eastern Time. Saskatchewan in Edmonton, and that will be a very important game. Remember, the Hall of Fame game takes place Sunday afternoon, and that is Hamilton and Winnipeg. Montreal wins this game 28-10 over Toronto, and this is Bill Stevenson for the entire CTV crew saying good night. This CFL telecast has been brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Sports, bringing the sports world home to you. This telecast is copyright and is strictly for the private use of our audience. Any reproduction, retransmission, or rebroadcast in whole or in part without the express written consent of the CTV television network is strictly prohibited.
This is the CTV Television Network.